Board of Adjustment meeting, Monday, February 28th, 2022. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on December 14th, 2021, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on December 14th, 2021, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 14th, 2021, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching their decision, and a decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For any members of the public wishing to ask questions or comments on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature when the chairman opens the hearing up for members of the public. Once you are brought into the meeting, you will need to have both audio and video. You will be sworn in and required to give your name and address. If you are calling in on the phone, you can press star 9 to raise or lower your hand and press star 6 to mute and unmute yourself. Thank you.
We have a roll call, please.
Yes, you may. Mr. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Hughes?
Here.
Mr. Mertens?
Here.
Mr. Moretti?
Here.
Mr. Orozco?
You know what? He's in the list of attendees.
I see him. Hold on, we'll bring him in. Jose is over here. One second.
I'm here.
Hey,
Okay, Mr. Orozco.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Saya,
Here.
Mr. Stanton,
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez is absent, and Chairman Nansen.
Here,
You have a quorum.
can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
States of America,
and
to the republic,
which
stands one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
justice for all.
I want to ask everybody if we could just have a bit of a silent prayer and just silence for what's going on in the world today. You know, y'all know what's going on. Okay, swearing in of the professionals, Mr. Bear.
Yes, do you all swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Professionals are sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, February 14th, 2022. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Moretti, Mertens, Orozco, Saya, Nansen. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mertens,
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
seconded by Mr. Hughes. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Moretti,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Saya,
Yes,
and Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Vouchers,
I have no vouchers this evening.
correspondence.
Correspondence I do have. I have a letter from Stephen Melnack. He is the attorney for NJ Solar 2000 LLC, which is on tonight's agenda. Actually, I'm going to skip that for a minute. Let me go one step further first. The township manager would like to know if the board would consider going back to live meetings, perhaps in April. I do have one applicant that was already scheduled or carried to April 11th, which is our first meeting. And he's just a homeowner. So if we would want, we could go to the second meeting in April to do live meetings so that he doesn't have to renotice and it gives me time to get a notice in the paper. Or we could go to the first meeting in May. It's up to the board.
I'm okay with the second meeting.
Me too.
Me also.
That works.
I'm good with it.
Sounds like it does. That's what.
Right.
Okay,
Look
So we
forward to it.
will. So the two meetings in April, one is April 11th, which will be Zoom. And the second meeting in April is April 25th, which will be live.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Can
Nice.
you remind us?
Yes, and you'll know because when you get the agenda, it won't have everything that this one has. That
Okay,
brings me to my next correspondence. The letter from Steve Melnack would like to know if the board would carry him on the record without further notice to April 25th, 2022. I did tell him that if we went to live meetings, he would have to renotice. He's also granted the board an extension of time to April 25th, 2022.
Any other correspondence?
That's all I have.
Okay, anybody here for the case number BA 20-117 NJ Solar 2000 LLC? This case will be carried to April 25th, 7 o'clock with no further, they have to notice, correct?
Yes, because it's a live meeting, so they'd have to notice.
They have to renotice this meeting.
If I can ask a quick question, Eileen, and I'm fine with it. We're gonna stick with 7, right? 7 o'clock for the
Yes.
time. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and that's all I have for correspondence. Thank you.
Okay, Eileen? Any resolutions?
I have no resolutions.
Okay. So that leads us up to case number BA 2114, IPP Solar LLC. Conditional use variance, preliminary and final major site plan. Preliminary, final major site plan. It's a major subdivision. Application of IPP Solar. Yeah, my light is so bad in here. LLC as applicant and Stavola Realty Company, Lot 17, and Stavola Construction Material, lots 27, 28, as owner seeking a conditional use variance, preliminary major final subdivision, and preliminary final major site plan to construct 23-acre, 4.7 megawatt
Chris Rosati.
solar facility. I'm gonna stop right there. Did they amend that megawatts?
Yes.
Okay. Facility consisting of 2 solar arrays, 2 concrete pads for equipment, and 7-foot high chain link fence around the perimeter security fence with gate and 2 associated 26-foot wide access driveways on 28 and 17. Additional associated site improvements include stormwater management basin, buffer landscaping, as well as electric utility improvements adjacent lot 18 to construct proposed solar farm. Facilities to JCP&L electric grid network to premises known as Block 41, lots 17, 27, and 28 Victory Road. Expiration date, February 28, 22. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Mertens, Moretti, Roscoe, Saya, Nansen. And do we have anybody else that's certified?
I certified.
Okay,
Mr. Alfieri, do you need anybody brought into the meeting?
I guess we could bring Mr. Rosati and Mr. Mezir in, but we concluded the testimony, so I'm not sure that we're going to need them, but if you want to let them in the interim in case there's a question.
Okay, they are in then. Thank you.
Thank you.
well, if there is any question, Mr. Alfieri, that would have to open up to public.
I understand. That's why at the last meeting, we closed public portion of the meeting. We concluded our presentation and the board wanted to carry it for a vote. Since the last meeting, we've had discussions, and I just wanted to offer to the board that if you recall, on the western portion of this property, we had amended the application to provide a 150-foot buffer along the perimeter, which would result in a 4-acre clearing out of 8 acres. Since that last meeting, my client has indicated that he is willing to increase that buffer to 200, which would reduce the clearing from 4 acres to 3 acres, so 3 acres out of the 8. And they would eliminate any bulk variances on that lot and would only require the 2 conditional use variances, which would be the 65 acres and then the PJM feasibility report. We already established that the PJM feasibility report was not applicable to this type of project. So if the board were to vote favorably on this application this evening, we would agree that as a condition of approval, there would be a 200-foot buffer on the western section of the property.
I'm looking for.
Sal, is it additional tree save or or additional plantings?
Well, it probably would be tree safe because
Okay.
the interior land would be expanded, the interior buffer would be expanded. So it'd probably be all tree safe. Unless you need us to supplement where necessary, we can.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bear.
I'll take the title. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. Is that considered opening new testimony or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay. You want to give us some directive if?
Yes, the board, sure. The board, as you read into the record, Mr. Chairman, and this matter is a conditional use variance, preliminary and final major subdivision, preliminary and final major site plan. The solar use is a couple of comments, to put solar on the 2 lots. One lot's in ARE6, which is what's triggering the need for the conditional use variance, and the other lot is in the SED special economic zone. So I know there's been testimony in this regard, but solar is an inherently beneficial use. And so you have, as a matter of law, the positive criteria has been satisfied. So now that just the question is really as it relates to any negative criteria, the SED special economic zone allows for commercial uses such as warehouses if this isn't approved. And in the west side, as I said, it's an ARE6, which is a 6-acre zoning, and the planner can speak to this more, but There are if there was a single family home built, there would be substantial clearing of trees allowed on the west side as well. With that, you have to, balance the testimony, and the board's got to make a decision whether the criteria has been met for the use variance and the rest of the application.
Jennifer,
So Andy kind of stole a little of my thunder, but that's all right. So just going back to the conditions that Mr. Alfieri identified as needing relief from, the first is not applicable because this is not subject to PJM oversight. So while technically, I guess, they need relief from that condition, they really have no ability to comply because it's not applicable to this project. So what has transpired tonight by the applicant withdrawing the request for relief from the buffer requirement and adding an additional 50 feet to the setback of the array from Victory Road, what it has done is eliminated that relief. So really, the only relief necessary, and albeit it's a D3 use variance, is simply for the minimum 65 acre requirement where 8 is provided. And again, I would submit the applicant has identified that only 3 of those 8 acres, and Sal, you can correct me at any time if I'm incorrect, 3 of those 8 acres will be cleared. I, as a planner, would submit that clearing of 3 acres is far superior to clearing of 65 acres of residential land. I know that these standards have been in our ordinance for some time, going back to when SRECs, which were credits, were very lucrative, and there were a number of solar projects throughout the state of New Jersey going on. I don't think in this day and age it is as applicable as it once was. And I will tell you that at the planning board, the board is in the process of doing a land use amendment, and these standards are being recommended to be revised to eliminate these requirements that are no longer applicable. That being said, the relief is specific to the ARE6 side of the project. As you know, it's bisected by the railroad. On the SED side, it is compliant. I think Charlie, as you know, I'm sure, is very diligent in ensuring that all stormwater management is adhered to. In addition, they've agreed to collect drainage that exists on the road that's not even theirs, which is an added benefit to the inherently beneficial renewable energy. And there are permitted uses on that side. I know we keep going back to warehouse and there are others, but at the end of the day, I just want to be very clear that something is going to go on this property, whether it's solar or something else. So the rationale behind concerns is clearing of trees. The trees are not going to be there. So they're going to go, whether it's for this or for some other project. And I will say the applicant has worked very hard with us over the course of the past 3-4 months. I think the project as presented to you now is far superior than it was when it started out. We kind of have beaten them down a little, and they've provided significant landscaping where, if you look at some of the other solar projects that we've had historically, have not yielded the same landscaping care that this application has provided. So I just want to be clear, I understand there's concerns, but from my professional opinion, the application has met all the criteria. I think clearing 3 acres versus 65 is a superior outcome. And I would say in this particular instance, it's one of the very few times that I would say deviating from strict ordinance compliance actually provides a better planning alternative for this section of the township. So as far as I'm concerned, the criteria has been met. And I would defer to the board as to if you want me to answer any questions or, to decide how you want to move forward with the application.
Charlie, I don't think we need you to come in unless you have something to say.
I'll just make one minor comment. It's just to piggyback on the stormwater comment. So obviously on the west side of the railroad tracks there, they are reducing the amount of tree clearing. There is, less runoff associated with wood cover versus, meadow mix or grass. So that's another measure that's going to reduce runoff that's generated from the site, which is a positive.
Question of our professionals. See, y'all have Mr. Saya?
Mr. Nansen,
Yes, sir.
my heart is breaking right now because I have the news on, and as you know, I want to take a pause here. There's reports that, the FOAB was dropped on Ukraine, which is the father of all bombs, and it's killing me. But I'm going to continue to pray for those folks and pray to God that this thing comes to an end, because it's bringing me to tears. Anyways, when it comes to this application, my fellow board members, 2 weeks thinking about it, working it, knowing that I have worked on many energy projects in my career, and especially the last 10 years. I've worked on major projects where, ESPCs and all sorts of things happening. And I've done my research. I've done my homework. New Jersey is, as the testimony been put forth by Mizir, New Jersey's just not there, right? The battery solutions, the micro turbines, the peak shaving solutions. I just don't see it happening in the state of New Jersey. We know it's happening in the state of New York. New Jersey, in its own right, the BPU, the ESCOs, the ISOs, are more of the PV type, right? We're the PV capital of the United States. And, that's something that's hard to digest. The applicant has reduced the one condition. It's now just down to the conditional use. In my opinion, the energy for the utility is energy security. And that's big in this day and age and where we're going as a country. Having the solar field is a low intensity versus what I would call a potential high intensity. And I think that's beneficial to the community, especially in that area, especially when the planning board has a number of applications for warehousing on the docket in front of it. Any tree clearing, which is going to be reduced, thank goodness, the fund will be reimbursed for forestry repopulation. I would pray that the township does due diligence, works with the community, and finds good use for the tree fund in bringing back forestry to get the canopy back to where the Department of Agriculture, enjoys, our tree canopy in Monmouth County, because we have to work with the county as well. It's not an easy one for me, but, I would like to make a motion to approve this application on all of what I just said. And the fact that the applicant has compelled itself to go to the 200-foot buffer and just the one conditional use. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Can we get a roll call, Eileen?
Mr. Cantor,
Mr. Chairman, this one's a tough one for me too. In my tenure of being on the zoning board, I feel that I'm here to represent my neighbors in Howell, New Jersey. And I feel that they've selected me to represent their best interest. The piece of property in question is zoned as an ARE6 zone. The neighbors have vociferously opposed this particular variance. And who am I to oppose what my neighbors want? There's a reason why that's zoned ARA6. So my vote is no.
Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. Came in here with one thought, and then after hearing the increase of the buffer, I'm kind of rethinking. I don't know. This is a tough one. This is a this is a very tough one because I also think that there's the possibility that this could, with what's left of this of the ARE portion of this, I just can't understand why we can't get that on the other portion. So I'm gonna go ahead and say my vote's no as well.
Mr. Mertens?
I've given this application a lot of time. I can understand in the SCD, there is a lot of positives to this application. But last meeting on the 14th of February, we found out from the applicant that they are looking to get 4.5 kilowatts for this site. There is 4.2 on the east side, and if you add the west side, it was 4.8 total. Our planner even said this, and I concurred with her. We have room on the east side of the tracks. This is why I do not understand why we are disrupting the west side when we can put everything in one zone, and that is the SCD. And this is where this application belongs, because the only ones benefiting from this application is the owner of the property, the applicant, and New Jersey National Gas. My vote is no.
Mr. Moretti?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mr. Saya?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen?
Yes.
That's a denial. It's 4-3 yes. So thank you for your time, board members.
I think it is. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute. I've got to find out about my connectivity. Let's take a 5-minute recess here.
The board will take a 5-minute recess. They'll be back at 7:35. The zoning board will now reconvene.
My connectivity, I don't know how long I got, so.
All right. Before we start, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Bayer's firm has a conflict with this application, so he's going to recuse himself. And we have Steve Tombalakian from the firm of Wiener Lesniak as our conflict zoning board attorney, so he's sitting in.
Okay. Hi.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think he just pulled himself out. Okay. And we have Chris Hanlon is the attorney for the Leskowski application.
Okay.
Mr. Hanlon, do you need anyone else brought into the hearing? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm unfortunately I have to switch to Plan B conferencing equipment, so I'll have to wear this headset. Yes, I need my client, Mr. Laskowski.
Oh, hey, let's read you in. Case number BA 2106, Robert Lewowski. This is a preliminary and final major site plan with bulk variances. Application of Robert Lewowski is applicant, and 1600 Route 9 LLC is owner seeking a use variance, preliminary and final major site plan approval with bulk variances to construct the 2,400 square feet of 40 by 60 garage storage building and a second floor addition to an existing one-story residential dwelling, associated site improvement, and operate a contractor's business on premises known as Block 137, Lot 14, 1600 US Highway 9. Okay. Expiration date, March 31st. Eligible voters, Cantor, Hughes, Mertens, Moretti, Roscoe, Sayet, Stanton, and Nansen. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so everyone is clear, I'm sure you all are, but in addition to what the chairman announced, we are also seeking a use variance for this application. In addition to Mr. Laskowski, who I see has joined us, I also need Justin Osiello, who is my planner. Hopefully he is logged on and can be admitted.
Coming in now.
Great. This application, board members, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christopher Hanlon. I'm with the law firm of Hanlon, Neiman and Wright. I'm here tonight representing Mr. Laskowski. The application was started by us back in September. And then the board gave us an opportunity to make some changes. We came back in December, and it was clear that some additional changes would have to be made. We believe we've now made those, but because of that, this is somewhat stale. So I don't want to presume we remember all of it, but I don't want to start from scratch either. I will have Mr. Laskowski testify about some of the essentials that I think are pertinent to the issues that were raised when we were here previously. And if I'm spending too much time on these facts because the board has a collective recollection of this matter and they don't need to hear it, someone just tell me that and I'll try to be more efficient. So I'd like all of my witnesses sworn, please.
So, Mr. Hanlon, so we have we have the applicant, Mr. Laskowski. We have Justin Osiello, the planner. I also see Mr. Maltese. Are you testifying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, he is.
Okay, so do you have any other witnesses, Chris?
No, those three. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. The three gentlemen I just mentioned. Do you all please raise your right hands? Do you all swear or affirm that any testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I believe we have all your information, but Mr. Maltese, you're from Abington Engineering?
That's correct.
Mr. Osiello, what planning firm are you with?
Cafone Consulting Group.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, help me out. How much background testimony do you need concerning the expertise of my engineer and planner? They may have appeared before you dozens of times or not at all. I don't know.
Okay, let's just get them put on their educational background and the companies that they work for.
All right, let's start with Mr. Maltese. Go ahead, Mr. Maltese.
Yes, I graduated from Hofstra University in 2006 with a bachelor's in engineering. I've also graduated from NJIT with a bachelor's in engineering with a specialization in land surveying. I have my license in New Jersey, Pennsylvania for professional engineering, and my license for surveying in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida. I've appeared before. I'm sorry, sir?
We accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Osiello.
Absolutely. Master's degree in planning from Rutgers University. That was granted in 2005. I've been a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 2008. I'm employed by the Cafone Consulting Group. I have appeared at your zoning board and your planning board. I've also appeared in planning and zoning boards in 18 counties in New Jersey, hundreds of occasions at planning and zoning boards in New Jersey over my career.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, let me start with Mr. Laskowski. You've been sworn, correct, Robert? You're muted.
Yes, that is correct. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. So just to refresh the board's recollection, where is this property located?
1600 US Highway 9.
Okay, and that's the address is good, but orient them concerning its location if you can. What's nearby?
It's north of the Home Depot and south of what was Long John Silver, sort of by the chapter house.
Okay, and it's on the southbound side of Route 9, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And the current improvements on it is an old residential structure, correct?
Correct, yes.
You're the owner of the property,
I am, yep,
and you have a contracting business, correct?
I do, yes.
Refresh the board's recollection concerning the nature of that work, please.
So it's a company we started and my father started in 1978, up Northern Jersey in Union County. And since then, I've taken over the company, and we've sort of been in between towns, in between counties, trying to set up a shop where we can call home. But we mainly specialize in industrial and commercial contracting. So manufacturing facilities, warehouse facilities where they're doing tenant fit outs of that nature. We don't do any.
I'm sorry, was someone speaking?
I just added that we don't do any residential. We're strictly industrial, and sometimes we do commercial work.
All right, so all the work you perform, your company performs, is at your clients' locations, correct?
Yes, correct. The majority of all of the material and the labor and the work is at the on-site at the client's facility, not at the property.
Okay, so to elaborate on that, when you're doing an improvement to a factory or a manufacturing facility, all the parts and materials are delivered directly to the facility?
Yep, correct. Yeah, but in my previous testimony, it's the same. So we will get materials that would be sent to the site. We had, if it is ever going to go to the 1600s, usually a screw up. And we've had one or two of those where we've had a delivery there, but 99% of the time it's at the actual job itself. My guys, they all have trucks at their house that they take to the site. It's not like we go to we don't meet anywhere first beforehand. Everybody meets on site, and we have project managers that have like temporary restrooms and temporary offices on site as well.
When you say on site, you're talking about your client's properties, not this property.
Okay, yeah, off site, my property, but on site their property, correct?
All right. So with regard to this property, you plan on expanding the existing residence for office use, correct?
Yes.
All right, elaborate on that a little, please.
Currently, it's a little house. It's nothing to look out, quite frankly, and I'm just looking to convert it into offices for my project managers, office manager, myself, my father, things like that, and put a garage in the back portion to take care of any kind of trucks or trailers or any kind of leftover material that we have.
All right, with regard to the structure that is there, the house, you're going to expand that by adding a second story, correct?
Yeah, so technically we're actually making the footprint of the house smaller to accommodate the new driveway if the board approves, and but we would be adding a second floor to the existing structure. The existing structure right now is essentially a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with a small garage attached to it.
All right, and on the second floor of the office building that you're proposing to expand, there will be, you propose one small bathroom upstairs, correct?
Yeah, a private bathroom in one office, yeah.
None of that space is going to be leased out to any third parties, just yourself?
No, 100% my company, nope.
All right, and the garage will have how many bays now under the current revised plan?
Yeah, so originally it was 4, and we took into account the opinions, and we went down from 4 to 3 to accommodate the turnaround. And that is also something that'll be 100% us. I'm not subleasing it or letting any of my friends store their stuff there.
Okay, with regard to that garage facility, what type of vehicles do you need it for?
It's mainly regular pickup trucks. I did have a dump truck on site. We sold it, or actually it's being sold now off the site. That was the largest vehicle we had. And then I have a mini excavator. I have a Bobcat, 2 scissor lifts, and those are all mostly equipment that is off-site on projects.
Okay, with regard to the solid waste removal, what's your plan for storage and removal?
Right, so that was something we kind of went back and forth on. We finally nailed down the fact that we're going to do a split face enclosure in the behind the garage, and that'll be picked up by a front end compactor, like a garbage truck.
Okay, and we can, Mr. Maltese, I'm sure we'll go over this, but the plans have been redesigned to eliminate the one garage space to facilitate a turnaround space for that type of truck, the garbage truck, correct? Yes.
Was that to me or was that to Anthony? I'm sorry.
No, he's going to elaborate on the plans, but I just want to finish your testimony.
Oh yeah, yes, that's correct. I'm sorry.
All right. So, and the garbage trucks that will come to take care of the solid waste, are those going to be the largest trucks that will come to the property?
Yes.
Bear with me. So the office is going to be used for your support staff and I guess yourself. How many people is that currently?
Currently it's about 4, but we're hoping that we could grow a little bit to fit into what I believe will be a good size for the company.
Does the garage space include any water or sewer utilities?
No, the only utilities will be electric, just for lighting.
And how do you plan to improve the facade of the garage?
Well, so we have drawings for that, but we have I guess 4 feet up, I think, is stone veneer, and then the rest of the garage would match what we do in the house itself, which would be I believe regular siding.
And how about, will it also match the refuse enclosure?
Yeah, the split face block hopefully will be, we don't have to paint it, but that's the goal, is to have it very, very similar so that it almost looks like it's part of the building itself.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I went through a summary of his testimony that he gave at more length back in September. Again, I want to be as efficient as possible here since this is the second time you're hearing this, but Mr. Laskowski's available, obviously, to answer any questions of any board members now, if you deem that appropriate.
I'm going to start with the professional real quick.
Yeah,
Charlie?
Mr. Chair, the only comment or question that I have is I believe there was testimony at the prior hearing going back to September that if any of the equipment that Mr. Laskowski talked about ever needs to come back to the site, it would be stored inside the garage and not in any of the parking areas or anything like that. That's still in order?
Correct, yes. That's exactly what we would do. So if we have any of those, anything that's outside currently right now on the property, I want it completely inside, out of the elements and away.
That's all I have from a use and operational perspective, Mr. Chair.
Jennifer?
I along the same lines, is the garage big enough? So when you say equipment, what about like your trucks? And the reason I'm bringing this up is that there was a recent decision, a court decision on a matter before the planning board that determined if you're storing vehicles in the front, that constitutes outdoor storage, which is not allowed. So I just want to make sure, like you said, you have pickup trucks and equipment, all of it's going to be stored in the garage, or are there going to be vehicles stored on the site as well?
So the way that it works right now, I have a pickup truck that's unmarked. My project manager has a pickup truck that has LASCO on it. So those vehicles would be there daily in and out, but they wouldn't be sitting there parked overnight or over the weekend. Currently, I have, I think, 2 trucks on property that I'm trying to get into a garage situation that are being stored there. So I want to get away from that. I want to put it into the garage.
Great. So I just would just say, if there is, I understand what you're saying, that all the equipment, et cetera, would be stored inside. If there's an occasion to park those trucks overnight, like the pickup trucks, just make sure that they're parked in the back by the garage and not in the front yard, because that's where the issue came up in that litigation.
Absolutely, not a problem.
So I would just make sure, Mr. Bear, that we identify that as a condition. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to ignore you. Just make sure we mark that as a condition, that there'll be no outdoor storage of any vehicles in the front yard. Thank you.
Board members, do y'all have any question?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking forward to seeing the revised plan.
Okay,
I have a quick one, Mr. Chair, if I may, and Mr. Laskowski, we covered this in the last meeting back when, just excuse me, but when you bring in, you said maybe some excess materials from your job sites, can you just give me a quick rundown of like what they would be? Is there anything that we have to worry about with toxic or anything?
Yeah, so we did, we talked about paints, like toxic paints. So I actually had a personal, I had a conversation with the head of fire, and he was saying that as long as we have a fireproof cabinet, which is what we have, that he's happy and that's sufficient. I'm sorry, what were we saying?
No, I was going to say, I just remembered that, I'm sorry, I remember that conversation, so I appreciate you reminding me. There's any other big pieces of anything, or is it just going to be, you know, a little bit here and there?
No, I mean, so off the top of my head, the largest things that we have are like those pieces of equipment. Other than that, we have scaffolding, but honestly, like we haven't used scaffolding since my father ran the company like 5-6 years ago. So that's one of those, there's a couple of those material that's currently on site that I'm getting rid of. You know, I just got rid of the dump truck and 3 small engined tools. So hopefully we'll clean up the rest of it. But honestly, the scaffolding is the largest. And there's not even that much. There's probably 20 pieces.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to know, you know, how much stuff. You said maybe some excess materials, but it sounds like it's just all construction material, so that's fine.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Laskowski, and just to clarify for the board, I thought there was some discussion about, you know, if you have any leftover PVC pipe from, you know, a job or something like that, that could come back to the site, but it would be stored inside the building. You're not gonna have like rack storage out in the parking area or behind the garage or anything like that. It can be inside the garage, just not outside.
Correct. I think I answered him too specifically as to what the largest piece was. But yes,
I don't want to preclude anything if, you know, the board doesn't take exception to it.
yeah. So any excess material that's coming back from a job site that we can't utilize elsewhere will go into storage in the garage. There won't be cantilever racking on the outside of the storage or in the back or anything like that. I have no plans for that, nor will I, because I'm assuming that's going to be conditional to this.
Okay, I thank you for that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I was just wondering, as you were talking, Mr. Lakowski, that you have 4 people presently working for you inside the offices, and you're looking to increase that to a good size. What's a good size? And will you have parking to handle that? And will the facility be able to handle that?
Yeah, it's a good point. So 7, I believe, would be the offices that we would like to expand it to. And I believe the parking is 8. I don't have everything in front of me as far as the details, but I know Mr. Maltese has that. So if he's able to confirm or deny what I'm saying later, that'd be great. But I'm pretty sure that's what we got going on. We have 1 handicap spot in the front, and the rest are regular parking.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna hold off till I see the plan, and then I may have further questions after that.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I need some guidance from the board.
Mr. Hanlon?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you don't mind, just to put it on record, Mr. Laskowski had testified that there may be some kind of toxic liquid, possibly flammable, I would assume as well. In accordance with our ordinance, I'd just like to make it known that those materials have to be registered with our Office of Emergency Management, so that if it does get approved, that he would have to submit application to them, let them know what it is that's being stored.
So absolutely, I'll do that. Just to kind of give you guys, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, like what it really is. It's really just leftover paint. is really exactly what it is. There's no, what I think what the general public would consider extremely hazardous, but absolutely, that's a good point.
That would fall under the ordinance.
Yep, and I will do that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Chairman, again, to facilitate the board's inquiries, especially Mr. Mertens and Mr. Saya's comments, I presume that our revised site plans have been distributed to the board. If the board wants me to do a screen share,
Yes.
I can do that. I just have to take a few minutes to do that. So is that necessary?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen?
Yes.
All right, good. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Mr. Maltese if he can comment on the revisions to the plan. Do you mind doing it that way, Anthony, so I can work on the screen share while you're talking?
Charlie, would it be better for you to put up the screen share?
Yeah, Charlie.
Or I can if you want, whichever.
Okay, Eileen. Eileen, it'd probably be easier with you.
Okay, hold on one
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah, Eileen has the bandwidth too. So that would be-
Not exhibits, go to
No faith in you, Charlie.
distribution 4.
One less technological thing I have to do is great.
And then you gotta click share over here. And then screen 1. That and share.
Okay, just Anthony has to tell us which page he wants.
I think page 3, I believe.
Page, yes, page 3 would work.
That's fine.
So just to go back on Mr. Laskowski's testimony on the parking requirements, it's 1 space per 300 square feet of office space. And that's where we derive the eight spots. So I don't know how many offices he will have, but he cannot have any more than, 8 personnel at one time working at the facility. Okay,
Okay,
so I want to make that.
And I want to get right to the point, might as well start since I think we're on the right page, raised by Mr. Mertens and Mr. Saya. I think the turnaround is just to the right of what we're looking at. Ms.
Yes.
Morbano, can you slide that to the left?
So we cut the building short about approximately 15 feet on the proposed garage to put a turnaround to the rear of that building or to the side of the building. A 10 by 15 trash enclosure was added. And it's provided enough radius turnaround access for a front end loader. Okay.
A front end loader, meaning front end loading garbage truck.
Garage, yeah, dump.
Yeah.
Where is the dumpster? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. Eileen.
It's to the left where the concrete pad is.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Behind to the right of the building. No problem.
I got it. Thank you.
So that was the major change that we did here. We increased, I believe we did some recommendations that were requested for the basin, increase the volume of the basin. It can actually handle a 10-year storm infiltration, and we were requested for a 2-year infiltration. We've added additional planting on the woodland management plan. And those are the major changes that we've done since the last time we were in front of the board.
Maybe we can go to specific pages if the board has specific questions. Let me just run through some responses to the Mr. Cunliffe's report. There's a suggestion that there's a fence that's being proposed for the property, correct, Mr. Maltese?
Yes.
And the suggestion was made that it be extended right to the refuse enclosure, and we're planning on doing that, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, I believe, and I want to get right to the point, Ray. Might as well start since I think we're on the right page, raised by Mr. Mertens and Mr. Saya. I think the turnaround is just to the right of what we're looking at.
That's correct.
We have communicated with the fire official. His revised report has been received, board members. There is no objection to the 25-foot driveway width. That's one of the waivers we're looking for. Have you communicated with him about that, Mr. Maltese?
I have not spoken to him directly about that. I believe he sent us the letter together. But what he did comment on is that he will not be pulling, if there is an emergency or a fire, he will not be pulling into the site to fight the fire. He'll be parked along Route 9.
Mr. Hanlon and Mr. Chair, if I could just jump in and maybe we can speed the process along or a little bit quicker. So obviously the fire official, I think you provided a knockbox to the gate to the site, which he asked for. I think you also have fire lane striping along the northerly property line and signage as requested. My comment would be for the turnaround area. Obviously, some of that striping be extended in there just so we can make sure that no one's utilizing that as a parking space so we don't have issues for trash pickup. They already talked about the refuse enclosure. It's going to be split face block with some type of coloring and block to match the water course or the water table for the garage, which I think is appropriate. As far as the fencing, I would leave it up to the board. I recommended that currently, if you see where the cursor is, the fencing comes into the upper left-hand corner of the building. I had recommended the fencing kind of wrap around the back side of the enclosure, just to close up the whole back of the site. There's also a stormwater management basin back there. The board maybe might want to consider the fence wrapping around the basin. I think we're splitting hairs at that point. The lighting, the applicant did revise the plans. They originally on the last submittal had tried to lower the light intensity to meet the maximum average. In doing that, they actually dropped the minimum coverage, so they didn't have light through some of the parking spaces. They've rectified that. They still need a waiver for exceeding the maximum 0.5 foot candle maximum average. That's a similar waiver we've been granting on a lot of applications with the LED lighting. I take no issue to it, obviously, as long as all lighting that abuts the residential property to the south has house side shields and is downward facing. I think they also revised it so it's a maximum of 3,000 Kelvin. So I take no issue to that. Let me just quickly see if I have anything else that was outstanding. I'll let Sherry talk about the applicant. Obviously, I think did some prior tree clearing, which Mr. Aguiar brought to the board's attention at the last hearing. It's my understanding that they have added that calculation to the plan and are proposing to make the required contribution or seeking relief to make the contribution into the fund. Mr. Maltese or Eileen, if you could just go to sheet number 5, which is the landscaping plan. So, what I would submit to the board is there's definitely some space, if you look to the left-hand side of the screen here, between the garage and the building where that landscaping could be, enhanced with some additional trees and shrubs to both the second story office and then also the garage to the rear to possibly, not have to make the contribution. I'll let Sherry opine to that, but I think that's an easy change to a site plan to accommodate to try to eliminate that. And then as far as my end, I just want to point it out for the board. This isn't a major development. The lot is just over an acre in size, but they're not disturbing more than an acre with the development because there's wetlands at the back. They're not increasing impervious coverage by more than a quarter acre. So technically, they're not even required to provide stormwater management, but they have done it at the request of the board. I take no exception to the stormwater management that's provided at the rear of the site. And then I just also want to note for the reference too, for the board's record, the property is like 400 square feet over the threshold of 1 acre. That's an important thing for our township buffering requirements. If you're under an acre, site plan only requires a 10-foot buffer strip adjacent to a residential use zone. When you go above an acre, it requires a 50-foot buffer. So, and the applicant did put testimony on the record along the northerly property line. There was a deed overlap, a gore, so they kind of self-impose a hardship on themselves or the prior owner by, filing a quitclaim deed to get that extra area. So the garage, part of the turnaround, the refuse enclosure, the septic field, the two-story office in the front, which is an existing structure that's getting a second story, needs technical relief of being in a 50-foot residential buffer. And I'll let Jen opine further, but this is an HD1 zone where commercial uses are permitted. I think the property to the south is an existing non-conforming residential use. So, in my eyes, I think, with adding some additional buffering to those areas, I think would enhance, maybe I think what they're proposing is a reasonable alternative, for only being 400 square feet above the threshold of needing, the buffer requirement, but I'll let Jen add into that.
I don't disagree. I think that some of these older sites along Route 9, unfortunately have, our ordinance doesn't differentiate between non-conforming or conforming residential structures, and the requirement actually says residential use or zone. So currently in this commercial corridor, there's an existing residence that's to the south, correct? To the south?
Yes.
We do see some landscaping, and I would agree with Charlie that we could stand to have that beefed up as some type of mitigation, and I would 100% defer to Shari on what exactly she thinks would be most appropriate in that area. But you do have some area in the rear of the garage and the house or the office now that could stand to have some increased landscaping to try to mitigate, the lack of the 50 feet. I mean, we've been pretty consistent about requiring that. This site is super tight, so full compliance would basically render the site almost not developable. And I would also submit, and Steve, I don't know how exactly we would word this, but if that residential use ceases to exist in this commercial zone, then that requirement goes away. They wouldn't be required to have the buffer. So I don't know if there's some language we could put in there, but at the end of the day, I also agree, and I would like to see some increased landscaping. There's actually 3 items in our letter that identify this relief, but it's all related 100% to the buffer. So, I mean, I would say, Shari probably has a really good idea of what could go in there to kind of help mitigate that a little bit.
Yes, I'll jump in then. Like they both said, additional trees, but so some of the trees that you have proposed, they're ornamental trees, and they're also shown at the size of shrubs. So I really would like to see, native shade trees coming back, because that's what was taken out of the site. If we could get some oaks and black gum and whatever else along the side there, rather than a bunch of, red buds. That would be better, as well as you have a gap over by the trash enclosure. So that should be filled in too along the side property line. I know Charlie mentioned it'd be good to plant all the trees on site, but I don't think that's going to be possible, because you're deficient like 40 trees. So that would just be too many, but I would like to see additional along the side there, and you maybe could even squeeze a few along the back side of the basin, depending, you'd have to field locate them.
Do y'all have a problem with that?
No, we're amenable to those suggestions, those collective suggestions. We just, we understand we have to also take care concerning locating more landscaping adjacent to the disposal field. But other than that, we're completely on board.
Yeah, I think some of it could be a species switch, and then, there could be additional quantities, but you get a better buffer with some changes to the species.
Y'all can work with Sherry on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you also confirm, like they mentioned, I saw the new numbers were put in that the zoning officer had calculated. Is all tree clearing complete? There's no additional work that needs to be done on the site?
That I'm unaware of, unless it hasn't been laid out to this tree clearing line. So I'm not sure if there's any more trees that need to be taken out or not, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, maybe Mr. Laskowski could confirm that, just because what's on the plans are what's already been done, and that's the number we're looking at as far as where the deficit is.
I don't think I don't think he's gonna I don't think he's gonna know that answer unless the property's been marked out along the property lines to see what the extent of the clearing will be. But he could try.
This is probably information that we're gonna need, to be honest. I mean, it's all tied into the variance request. And knowing how many additional trees, if any, have to come down is information that, quite honestly, you guys should have figured out at this point and be able to address.
Mr. Chair, I would submit as a, Mr. Maltese is a licensed surveyor. As a condition of any approval, I think he could, put some flagging out where the limit of the tree clearing proposed is and coordinate a site meeting with Sherry to make sure that the tree clearing count on the plan as proposed reflects the actual condition that's out in the field. Sherry, you think that can be handled as a condition of approval?
Yeah, we can certainly meet on the field after it's marked. Yeah, then it will be pretty obvious.
Okay, good. That's a good idea.
Sherry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I was just curious if you could clarify something for me.
Sure.
So based on my inspection out in the field, we noted 23 trees cut down. We're only able to do a measurement of the, I guess, the base of the trees. There was no DBH to be measured since all trees were already removed. We figured based on our ordinance that 83 trees would be need to be replaced, where your report notes 40.
That's the deficit.
Help me out with the discrepancy.
Right, that's the deficit. So we subtracted out what they're providing on the site.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add two more kind of housekeeping comments. So I do want to note the applicant did provide documentation at the prior hearing. We talked about some concerns regarding prior fill of the property. The applicant did meet with DEP. They did provide a letter for the board's record that there was no enforcement action, that those activities occurred by a prior owner prior to the current wetlands rules. But I just add that I just request that be added to the applicant's EIS. And then also when they obtain their LOI that's pending with DEP, that also be provided for the board's record and added to the LOI, just to clarify and satisfy the record. And then the last item that I'll just note is there is a retaining wall along the site driveway as you get into the site. Eileen, if you could put up the site plan sheet real quick. Tab up top. Yeah. So in this, it's
Sheet 4 would be the grading plan. It'll show the wall start and stop.
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to the board. There is a wall. It goes anywhere from we'll say a foot up to 3.5, almost 4 feet. I think the applicant should be required to provide some type of guide rail or fencing along the top of the retaining wall, just for their own safety purposes, so someone's not driving off the end of a wall, and causing any issues for themselves or the neighboring property.
There is a fence. There is a fence shown on the site plan.
Okay.
Along that area, 4-foot high fence.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any from the board members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would like to know if the applicant would be amenable, now that we have seen a site plan that we think is digestible, amenable to Title 39. Since Charlie's asking for striping and making sure nothing's parked back there, etc. You follow where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Applicant?
Mr. Howell?
Hanlon?
I've never had to deal with it in such a small parcel, frankly. I'd have to discuss it with my client. The most of the time when I'm dealing with it, it's mobile home parks.
Understood, Mr. Hanlon, but this is a Route 9 corridor, and we don't want people just trotting in there, sleeping overnight, where they're not supposed to, and so forth like that. We do this.
I think that's why one of the reasons it's gated. So it is gated, correct? Am I recalling that correctly, Robert?
Yes, it is gated.
Yes.
Is Title 39 where a police officer stays on the property?
No.
Well, you authorize them to enforce the laws on your property. That's correct.
Yes, I believe that was brought up previously, and we agreed to that.
Okay, I don't have any recollection. There's your answer, Mr. Saya.
Great, so then that's just an application to the PD department, that's all. You know, it's a benefit for the applicant as well.
Okay, we agree.
Thank you.
Anything
Mr. Chair,
else?
can I just ask a question, please?
Yes.
And I apologize if you discussed this at a prior meeting, but just, Mr. Maltese, I see you're seeking a waiver for sidewalk along Route 9.
Yeah,
So I would respectfully submit that I would like to see the sidewalk. Having worked a couple doors down, people walk all the time. There are New Jersey Transit bus stations bus stops along Route 9, and people, you could actually see in certain instances, like a path in the grass. Sometimes they walk on driveways. So it is definitely something that I would submit to the board should be provided. We've been pretty consistent both here and at the planning board in requiring sidewalk on Route 9, up and down in its entirety where we can get it.
yes, we talked about that earlier with the applicant, and he has no issue in doing so.
We assume that that's subject to DOT approval.
Yeah, so our experience has been DOT takes no exception as long as it's
Okay.
4-foot wide concrete sidewalk. You know, they don't typically ask for it, but they don't have a problem if the town would like to see it installed.
So I would just ask that the resolution indicate that the zoning board is requiring it subject to DOT approval. And that's fine with us.
And Mr. Chair, what I'll add to that too is they do need a waiver also tying their private sidewalk into that. I mean, you know, depending on the location of it, we're talking about another 10 feet of the sidewalk that's currently shown, you know, behind the ADA parking stalls. I don't think that's a lot to ask to tie in to any sidewalk in the right of way. And I just want to know for the board's record, this is a property on Route 9, which is DOT right of way. Obviously, they're going to have to get a change of use access permit for that site driveway. So DOT will review that as part of their access permit process. So.
You know, I would just say that we wouldn't have a problem with it other than this is not a public place where someone can walk in from the sidewalk. So I would say we'd rather keep it the way it is if we can. So it doesn't invite anybody off the street.
Respectfully, I'm not worried about people walking in. I'm worried about people walking along the frontage of Route 9, which happens regularly because there's a bus stop right up by Home Depot. So
I'm talking about the connection.
I think he's just, Jen, he's just talking about linking their site sidewalk. to
yeah,
that
I don't have a
public-
problem with that not being connected because you're not really trying to
It's not a
enhance, but
public-
I would just like it along Route 9 for the public walking along there.
Do we know if there's a sidewalk in front of the Home Depot property?
There is not.
Not yet.
Thank you. It doesn't seem necessary to put a sidewalk there if there's none in front of Home Depot.
Right, but Glenn, we have to start getting it somewhere because I can tell you, having worked at CME, they use the driveway. They walk along the driveway up and then there's a dirt path that goes all the way to the bus shelter. And so every single application that comes across on Route 9, we need to start getting the sidewalk. I understand in some of the more rural areas in town that it maybe not be appropriate, but you know, all you need is one pedestrian to get hit by a car here. And there are a tremendous amount of people that walk.
Understood, but it's a sidewalk to nowhere if it's.
For now, you have to start somewhere. So if you don't start, you'll never get it. So there's a sidewalk, you know, and we have a sidewalk fund. So for example, in other areas in town, when it's not appropriate, they're contributing to the fund. So as this development, you know, or quote unquote, little R redevelopment occurs and patches of sidewalk are connected, then we can take that sidewalk fund and put the sidewalk in where it's missing.
100% agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions.
Yes.
First of all, the plan is a lot better and I appreciate the effort. One question is the apron at the southeast corner of the property by Route 9, that is going to be eliminated, I take it. And it will be filled in with grass or whatever, curbing.
Yeah, yes, that's shown on the demo plan on sheet 2.
Okay, I didn't see it, I'm sorry. The second thing is the garage. It's 60 by 40, according to what I see in front of me on the specs.
It's been revised.
Is that the revised 2400 or?
No, it's 40 by 40,
Okay,
45.25.
okay. How many bays is that going to be? 2?
It went from 4 to 3.
Okay, and they're going to be, how wide are they going to be?
They're roughly 12 to 15 feet wide.
Okay.
Depending on the
Okay.
door size.
Okay, and the only last thing which I think is more feasible depending on the size. My only concern was the trailers, if they brought them in, trying to back into the driveway from Route 9 was a concern. If the trailers are, not a big size, I can see this working. So I just want to clarify the size of the trailers.
Well, now that they have the turnaround, they can easily be able to turn the trailers around to the rear of the property, to the turnaround area. If you could turn to sheet 3, please. So directly in front of the building, they have to the curb line, they have almost 30 feet in width of pavement. And then they have 40 feet in depth inside the garage.
Please lower please lower it a little more.
Lower what?
I'm asking that the drawing be lowered so we can see the area we're discussing. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, I understand there's a lot more room to turn around, which is great, but you have to look at the size of the trailers that are coming in. I mean, if they're a 12-foot trailer, that's no problem. But if we're talking a big, a pickup truck, extended cab or whatever, rack truck coming in with a 20-foot trailer, that's going to be a little tougher. So that's what I just.
Right.
Mr. Mertens, in response to your question, I do believe I testified about this previously. I believe I have a 1 foot, a 1 10-foot trailer, 1 12-foot trailer, and 1 16-foot trailer. Both hitch up to a regular passenger truck. There's no need for any kind of large vehicle or semi to take it in and out. And we can utilize the garage because I believe this was a concern of yours previously, but I think it's fully addressed by the turnaround, as well as the fact that you can back it into the garage, the trailer itself. So we have full capacity to make a 360-degree turnaround.
Okay.
And the guys that do drive the trucks with the trailers, everybody is very good at what they're doing. 2 of the guys have boats, so they do this very often, which is nice. I have guys that I can count on.
Well, based on what you just told me, and I'm sorry I did not write down the sizes of them, but I do concur that you have sufficient room to do turnarounds and go into the garages. So that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mertens, just to add to that, so not only did they add that turnaround in place of that 4th garage bay, the straight in to the back of the site, they extended that further also. So that's another added, to aid in the turnaround of the trailer. So I think it's definitely an improvement from what they had previously.
I agree. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I one more witness, Mr. Orsiello, our planner.
Yes, sir.
No wasting time.
Good evening.
Mr.
You ready to go?
Orsiello?
Yes, hi. Good
you've
evening,
been-
everybody. Yes, absolutely. So we do require a use variance, actually 2 use variances for this application. The first is for the contractor business, which is not a permitted use in the HD1 zone. And the second is for 2 principal uses on 1 property. Now, you heard plenty of testimony this evening and in prior hearings. So I won't go too deeply into the details here, but I think it's important from the standpoint of the required planning proofs to go through the testimony relative to the use variances and the bulk variances. As the board is aware, for a use variance, there are certain statutory proofs that must be put on the record and sustained to prevail on the granting of use variance. And the first is whether the site is particularly suited for the proposed use. There are a few main points why I feel that this particular site is suited for the two uses, even though the uses may technically be considered under the ordinance two principal uses. I see them as interconnected. The garage really doesn't function without the contractor business offices. They're kind of hand in hand. But that being said, I think it's important first to talk about the highway, the HD1 zone in which the site is located. This is a zone that typically has uses that require larger frontage, more visibility, obviously to generate customers and patrons on the site. I think in this instance, with the limited site frontage on the site and the deepness of this property, those are two reasons relative to the site dimensions itself why this site is well suited to accommodate these two uses. There really is no need for highway visibility, and also this is a site that will have low site activity as well. I also feel that this site is of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed uses, and that's really borne out by the lack of dimensional variances in this application. I feel that relative to the existing dwelling on the property, which will be expanded vertically to accommodate the office, obviously that's within the front yard setback. That can't be moved, right? So that's a current condition that exists on the site. Also, you heard from our engineer relative to the non-compliance with buffering due to the narrowness of the site. Again, I feel that this is also this site that's ideal for this use, because unlike other many uses that are in the zone that are of higher intensity, higher activity, this is a use that's not that. So even though we cannot comply, due to, in my opinion, a hardship that's due to the narrowness of the site, full compliance, of course, wouldn't allow really for much in the way of any functional development. I feel that given the layout of the site, the dimensions and the type of use that's proposed, the compliance with the buffer, I feel that there's sufficient mitigation. That's proposed, as you heard from the applicant, he had agreed to work with the board's professionals on adequate landscaping and buffering in the southern part of the site to meet the wishes of the board professionals. You also heard from your engineer that the subject parcel is slightly above 1 acre. If this parcel was under 1 acre, the buffer strip would only be 10 feet and not 50 feet as required. So I feel that what's proposed this evening is allowing the applicant to provide for sufficient landscaping to mitigate against any potential impacts to the residential to the south. And I also feel that lastly, relative to the suitability of site, this portion of Route 9 has not reached its zoning potential under the HD1 zone. Again, I feel that this given the location of the site, this is the type of use on a particular site, the way it's laid out, that just makes sense from the planning standpoint. You also have an applicant, who's interested in changing up the site. It's from the current state to the improved state. It's going to be a vast improvement. So that's the suitability. For the positive criteria or special reasons, I feel that there are multiple purposes of zoning that will be advanced with this application. And that comes from the MLUL. And I'll just list out some purposes of zoning, which I feel that this application promotes. Criteria G, can you hear me?
Yep.
I had a blip in connectivity. So criteria G, criteria H, criteria I, and criteria M. There's more than sufficient space, in my opinion, on this property to accommodate this use. You've seen from the changes from the previous application to this current application, or the design, the applicant has made changes to the circulation of the site. So certainly, the ingress and the egress, and the ability for vehicles to circulate throughout the property. The free flow of traffic is promoted. The visual environment is desirable. Certainly a vast improvement from the current condition. And lastly, this, in my opinion, is quite a proper use of the land, given the previous reasons I had cited, given the deepness of the site, and the site being narrow in the HD1 zone, being the type of site that really is not conducive to the many permitted uses that are in this zone. For the negative criteria, I feel that certainly the granting of these variances would not present a substantial detriment to public good. As I had stated, there's going to be landscaping on this property, a substantial upgrade, safe and functional. As you heard from the applicant, this evening, not a lot of activity. The garage will be used to house trucks and various materials that the applicant will be using. So certainly, when you look to whether or not there's going to be a substantial level of impacts or negative impacts to the surrounding area, I certainly don't see this application rising to that level, if really any impacts from the negative standpoint. And lastly, relative to the impact to the zone plan and the zoning ordinance, even though this is a zone that does not permit either the contracting business or the two principal uses on the site, I feel that, as I had stated, this is a better zoning alternative, given the character of the site, the character of the surrounding area. So again, even though this is a zone that does not permit it, I feel that in reconciling that deviation, there are some circumstances here that the board should take into account when determining whether or not to grant this use variance. And lastly, just briefly relative to the bulk variances that are cited in the planner's letter, relative to the buffering, as I had previously stated, it's due to the narrowness of this property and really the inability to comply. Just because if this applicant had complied, there really be nothing that can be done to further this site as well. So with that, I feel that the benefits of this application are certainly substantial. They do outweigh any detriments, which, if any, are not substantial. And lastly, I feel that this is an application that not just benefits the applicant, but also benefits the Route 9 corridor and the community by virtue of what's proposed this evening. That concludes my testimony.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with the applicant with respect to the particular suitability You know, I know you all are very familiar with this area of Route 9. These lots are very narrow and deep, and have been problematic in being kind of adaptively reused or redeveloped over the years. And I do think that this particular user, I think that why I would agree that the site is particularly suited is specific to the applicant's operations and business. It's not a typical like yard, which has a lot of material that'll be stored. There's been a commitment to store that type of material inside the garage. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of employees. I think Mr. Maltese said the max on the site could be 8, and a modest amount of equipment, all which could be handled based upon what's being proposed. So I do agree that the site meets the statute or meets the criteria for particular suitability. With respect to the purposes of zoning, I would agree with purpose G, which is sufficient space and appropriate location. I would agree with the desirable visual environment and an efficient use of land. I don't know that I would submit that a contractor's yard promotes free flow of traffic. So I think that's a bit of a stretch. But as you guys are all aware, all they have to do is meet one goal of zoning. And so I think of the 4, I would agree with 3 of the 4. And I do agree. I don't really see a substantial negative impact. As you know, and you've heard a lot of testimony over the years, it doesn't have to have no negative impact. It has to have no substantial negative impact. And, you know, I would submit that the size and the location of this use, you know, and quite honestly, being, you know, 2 doors down from Home Depot probably doesn't hurt either. So I think that I would agree that there is no negative impact to the intent and purpose of zone plan or zoning ordinance, nor to the surrounding land uses. With respect to the bulk relief, there are a couple, but, you know, based upon recent case law, most of the C or bulk variances get subsumed within a D1 use variance. You have a front yard setback, which I agree is existing, but when you put a second story on the existing structure, you're exacerbating what's in that front yard setback, and therefore that variance is typically would be required. I agree. You know, when you're talking about setback relief, you're talking about from the property line, specifically in the front. The lot lines for these properties are significantly distant from the actual road. There's a big right-of-way on Route 9, and we've seen this in many other applications where there's expansive right-of-way between the property line and the road. And I don't think the structure is exceedingly close to the road, and I don't think there'll be a negative impact with the second story being put on that structure. In addition, the side yard setback, where it's 25 feet or the height of the building, the height of the office is going to be 29 feet 4 inches. So therefore the side yard setback would be required to be 29.4, and they're not quite there. But again, I agree with Mr. Osceola, the site is pretty narrow. And so when you want adequate circulation, you want adequate driveway width to accommodate the vehicles, the turnaround, et cetera, kind of pushes the development closer to the side lot line. So I would take no exception, especially considering Sherry's going to work with the applicant to beef up the buffering along that side. And I agree. And I think we kind of covered the buffering, not only in Mr. Osceola's testimony, but in the conversations earlier when we were talking about the additional landscaping. So, you know, yes, they're subsumed, but I do think that they, even if they had to stand on their own, I think the application would meet those criteria as well. Now, the reconciliation, you know, the master plan here in Howell obviously always advocates and promotes economic development, as you guys are all aware. You know, Howell is, even though it's a big town, 64 square miles, a lot of the roads are rural residential roads, and you really have Route 9 and Route 33 as your major commercial corridors. So you do advocate and encourage economic development. This is a nice adaptive reuse of a piece of property that really hasn't seen a lot of love in a lot of years. And so I think that all those items that have been discussed and the modifications that the applicant has made on the plans since the application started really promotes that goal in the master plan, and I can find reconciliation between what's being proposed and the goals of our master plan. So all that being said, I know that's pretty long-winded for me. is I feel like the applicant has provided the necessary testimony to meet the statutory criteria, and that the benefits of reusing this site on Route 9 for this particular user outweighs any detriment associated with the application. So I would submit that the applicant has met its burden.
Thank you, Jen.
Mr. Chairman, unless any of the board members have any further questions of our witnesses, we submit.
Okay, board members, we'll start off with Mr. Hughes. Have any questions or comments?
No, sir, I think I am good. I have lots of notes here and I'm good to go, sir.
Mr. Moretti,
I'm good, no problems.
Mr. Stanton,
No questions, sir.
Mr. Mertens,
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Saya,
Mr. Chairman, I would ask Mr. Cunliffe, is there going to be signage on this property?
So they do have one sign out in the front. It is, I believe they have revised it so it complies with the signage requirements as far as ground mounted landscaping, the setback from the public right of way, dimensions of the sign as far as width, base height, and all those kind of things. So I believe it is conforming with the ordinance, and they are permitted to have a sign as a commercial property on the in the HD1.
Thank you.
And
I have another question.
Yep.
Mr. Aguilar. Will this application satisfy all of the findings that you are currently have under your jurisdiction?
It does. The board has done a wonderful job of asking the right questions and the professionals presenting the case. So I'm satisfied that it has met and will abate all the violations that were found.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Roscoe,
Okay.
Mr. Cantor,
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. As usual, our professionals have done an excellent job summing this up for us.
I agree. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one comment, I apologize. I usually don't touch on the planning stuff, but I do want to, I think it's an important distinction. There's a lot of testimony about multiple uses and multiple structures. The applicant did provide testimony on the record that it would be one operation, no subleasing or anything like that. So any approval would carry a condition restricting it to one user of the site. And that's no issue from the applicant, Mr. Hanlon.
That's correct.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
okay, Mr. Hanlon,
I'm sorry, what, is there a
We
question?
have to go to public, Mr.
no, yeah, no, I know. Mr. Hanlon, do you have any more?
No,
testimony?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. No, we rest our case. We
Okay.
heard from all our witnesses. Thank you.
Now I'll take a motion from the board to open to public for questions and comments of the witnesses.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
okay, got a motion by Mr. Moretti, seconded by Mr. Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Eileen,
Okay, at this time, the chairman has opened the hearing up for questions and comments on this application only. If anyone has any questions or comments, please use the raise your hand feature. We'll bring you into the meeting one at a time. You will need audio and video. You will be sworn in and required to give your name and address. If you're calling in, you can use *9 to raise or lower your hand, *6 to mute or unmute yourself. Thank you.
we have anyone in the public?
Right now, there's no one with their hand up.
Give it a few more minutes. Last call, anyone from the public?
There's no one.
Okay, can I have a motion to close public
So moved.
by Mr. Moretti? Second
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
by Mr. Hughes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Hanlon,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, based upon all the evidence that the board has heard tonight, we would ask that you approve our application for 2 use variances. One is the contractor operation, and the other is the second principal structure on the building. My understanding, we also are requesting a front yard setback because we're improving an existing structure that's a nonconformity. We're requesting a variance from the required buffer area. We're requesting a variance from the contents of the buffer area, subject, of course, to further revisions and additions after an inspection, further inspection by Ms. Spiro. We're asking for design waivers for the contents of the buffer, for the 25-foot driveway, for the retaining wall located within the 5-yard setback, for the intensity of the lighting. I believe that's the complete list, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, I think you have to add in about the waiver to pay into the tree fund. I don't think you mentioned that one.
I'm sorry. It is our expectation that we will make a contribution to the tree fund once the final calculation is required to waive replacement of the required number of trees. Is that the appropriate request, Ms. Spiro?
You have to ask for a waiver to pay the deficit, right? It's not
Right.
a waiver on the quantity. Exactly.
Yes. Okay. Is it a waiver of the replacement quantity and instead paying instead? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Charlie,
Thank you.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Jennifer.
No, sir.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, would like to make a motion to approve case number BA 21-06. I concur with the testimony that's been put on the record tonight. I will say that the design is much better, and I appreciate the applicant. I know he was behind the 8 ball at one time with us, but he did a complete about face. I also agree with Jennifer that even though the sidewalks are not prominent there, we should start looking in that direction, and this is a good starting point. So my vote is yes, and make a motion for that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Mertens.
Mr. Chair, I would like to second that motion and also echo, I appreciate the progress. Really, it was a complete turnaround and things are looking good. I also want to mention that I think Charlie had mentioned that there really wasn't a stormwater management component that was required here, and they did put it in. So we appreciate that too, because that definitely will help. Obviously, to work with Shari, we've kind of talked a lot about that one, but that's very important. And I agree too about the sidewalk. So I'd like to second the motion, sir.
Okay. Have motion and second. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Moretti,
Yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Saya,
Yes.
Chairman Nansen.
Yes.
Motion carries. Application's approved.
I want to thank you all for volunteering your time
Thank you, Mr.
and for the approval.
Yes.
Mr. Laskowski, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
The zoning board's going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll go into the next meeting.
Chairman, it was a pleasure sitting in for Ron Kuchar tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I thank you very much, Ms. Tomlin.
Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Steve. Take
Yes, sir.
care.
Thank you, Eileen. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Andrew? Okay.
The board will take a 10-minute recess. They'll be back at 9:05. The zoning board will now reconvene.
Okay.
She's not coming over, but I did.
Oh.
I'll try her again.
Okay. Case number BA 2117, Gabrielli of Howell Realty LLC. It's a use variance, preliminary and major final major site plan. Application Gabrielli Howell Realty LLC is applicant, and Howell.
I used to work.
Oh, really?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, LLC as owner, seeking a use variance and preliminary and final major site plan approval to construct a two-story, 38,750 square foot building for truck sales, for leasing, service, and associated parking, loading, and fueling. The site will be accessed via 36-foot wide two-way driveway from US Route 9 North, which provides internal access. And boy, my lighting in here is terrible. Additional improvements include various drives and visitors inventory and employee parking, fuel tank station, loading zone, and one retaining wall on one stormwater management basin on premises known as block 144, lot 100 and 11301, 1207, 1209 US Route 9. Expiration May 14th, 2022. Welcome. Who's our attorney?
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bear, here. I'm
Oh,
back.
not Mr. Barry. Who's the attorney for Gabrielli?
It's Merrill Goncher, I think. Is she-
Yes.
Merrill,
It is
you're on
Merrill,
mute.
and you're muted. There you go.
Are you, okay, I didn't want to speak before you were done with your stuff. Merrill Goncher, Sills, Cummins and Gross, representing the applicant.
Okay.
And
Thank
we
you.
have some more people to let in.
Yeah, but
I've already let in the court reporter, Adam Fiella, Michelle Brehoff, Dr. Walker, Julia Algio, and Mr. Saya is not back on, so I don't know if he lost his connectivity or what.
Okay.
And
Well-
Mr. Stanton may have a conflict, so we have to
Yeah,
address that
we're-
first.
we're gonna- Let's address that now.
I'll text Mr. Saya, Mr. Chair, and try to round him up.
Does she have anybody else she
There-
needs?
Miss Goncher, do you have anybody else I have to bring in?
I do. I was going to give you Paul Avento. Avvento.
Okay.
And I also have my planner, Dan Block.
Okay.
We have a large crowd. And we have Dwayne Dancy and Kirk Mitchell, our architects.
Okay, we asked because they had their hands up. We weren't sure. Thank you.
I think I've got everybody now.
Okay, Mr. Stanton, you had stated that you might have a conflict with this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Bear?
So you don't work, you're not employed by the applicant, but you do business with them in some.
Correct.
And that you feel you won't be able to be unbiased in that regard, or you?
I mean, I do a lot of business with them. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
I want to be as fair and honest as possible. Do I know the owners of the business personally? No, but we're in the same industry. I buy a lot of parts from them. I tow a lot of vehicles to them. It's, in my opinion, could be a conflict. If I didn't say anything, I'd be.
Well, Ms. Goncher, we don't want to taint the application. So I would suggest that.
This is up to the board. I appreciate.
Well, I don't, yeah.
I will say that I just want you to be aware that the actual applicant is Gabrielli Howell Realty LLC.
Yeah, I mean, just in all fairness, I do a lot of business with the Gabrielli family of dealerships as a whole. I'm assuming I'll do business with Gabrielli Howell if and when that happens.
Well, It sounds like Mr. Stanton, for the sake of the sanctity of the record, should recuse himself.
Okay. Good afternoon. We'll see you later, Mr. Stanton.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Have a
guys.
good
And I
evening.
apologize. I just wanted to act in the best of faith that I could.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great night, guys.
You too.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, before we start, we don't have Mr. Saya back, and
Yeah, Mr.
five, and with Mr. Saya, there's only 6.
5, yeah, with him. with
Five,
Jim.
because we lost Mr. Orozco as well.
Mr. Saya was back.
His name is up here, but he's not here. I don't know. He's muted and there's no video.
Well, he came on just a while ago, but then he disappeared again. Okay, there's no way we're gonna finish his case tonight anyway. So there's Mr.
There he
Saya.
is. So we have 6.
There's, I suggest we go ahead and proceed. We'll get as far as we can tonight with the testimony, because there's no way it's gonna finish tonight, so.
Okay, yeah, I think you're back up to 6. We would obviously like to have more when we get to a vote. I'd love to be optimistic, but we do have a number of witnesses, so if we can proceed, we'll be happy to see how far we can go. Can you
Yeah.
give
Did
us
you
an
have-
idea?
I'm
how
sorry.
late-
You have a
Go
court
ahead.
reporter, so if you provide the transcripts, we can try to get the other members certified for any votes.
We will do that. We do have a reporter with us.
Thank you.
Are you ready? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Meryl Goncher. I'm a member of the firm of Sills, Cummis and Gross, and we are the attorneys this evening for Gabrielli Howell Realty LLC, the applicant this evening and the contract purchaser of the property. The property is located, as you heard, at 1207 and 1209 US Highway 9 North, and it's designated on your township tax maps as Block 144, lots 109 and 113.01. The property is located in the HD-1 Highway Development 1 zoning district. And we have served and published notice in accordance with statute. Notice was sent to property owners and interested parties on February 18, 2022. We published in both the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger on February 18, and we did submit an affidavit of proof of service and an affidavit of publication to Ms. Rubano. So if you can just confirm receipt of that and that we are in order and the board may take jurisdiction based on that.
Yes, I am in receipt of it and it is in order. Thank you.
Thank you. As you heard, we're seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval, a D3 conditional use variances, C bulk variances, and design waivers or exceptions for the construction and development of a 2-story, approximately 38,750 square foot building for truck sales, leasing, and service use, along with associated accessory parking, loading, and a fueling area for trucks being serviced at the site. The 2 conditional use variances are for non-compliance with the signage requirements and to permit mechanical service for repair of vehicles sold both on the premises and vehicles sold at other locations where service is permitted only for vehicles sold on the premises. And with regard to the signs, the condition is that we comply with the sign ordinance. And since we're asking for variances as to the number of signs and in some cases the size of the signs, that generates the need for a second D3 variance. Otherwise, the use, with the exception of those 2 conditions, is permitted. We've received a number of review letters. In the interest of time, obviously we will have our witnesses deal with those, but we did receive a completeness letter from T&M Associates We've gotten a number of reviews, I think second generation review from your engineer. We have gotten Monmouth County Health Department, Monmouth County Planning Board, your Fire Bureau, Shade Tree Commission, Environmental Commission, Farmers Advisory Committee, Planners Review Letter, and Landscape Tree Expert Review Letter. And we will have our consultants review those. Many don't have comments in them, and others we think we'll be able to go through quickly and comply and agree to comply with the comments. Our witnesses this evening are Paul Avento, who is a representative of the owner and the entity that will occupy the space. Julia Algio, a licensed professional engineer with Colliers Engineering. Dwayne Dancy and Kirk Mitchell of AKT Designs are architects. Michelle Brayhoff of Colliers, who is our traffic engineer, and Daniel Block, also of Colliers, who is our professional planner. We did receive, Ms. Urbano did send us the list of exhibits, and we would ask that the plans, applications, and reports that we had submitted, including stormwater and traffic, that all of those be made part of the record and then be entered into the record. I should say we also have an environmental expert with us this evening. We are not proposing to present affirmative testimony from him, but he is available if the board should have any questions with regard to the buffers or other circumstances and conditions at the site. As you know, this site is improved currently, and it is improved with automotive uses. And we hope that when we complete our presentation this evening, the board will agree with us that we think we are proposing a very attractive, beneficial, and economically beneficial use for the municipality, which is in keeping with what's permitted in the zone, as I indicated, with the exception of a few buffer variances, some waivers, and relief with regard to signage and our request to be able to service vehicles that were purchased off-site, generally at another Gabrielli location. Unless the board has any questions for me, I would ask that we be able to have Mr. Avento sworn as a representative of the applicant.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Avento.
Sir, do you swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you just state your name for the record and spell your last?
Sure. Paul Avento, A-double-V as in Victor, E-N-C as in Thomas, O.
All right, I'm going to ask you if you can speak up, Paul. A lot of people listening, and our court reporter has to be able to hear you to take down the testimony.
No problem.
Okay, can you start out by advising the board who you work for and what your role is with the company? And then give us some information, give the board some information with regard to what Gabrielli does and some information about the company.
Sure. I am the CFO and the project manager for both Gabrielli Howell Realty and also Gabrielli Truck Sales, which is our main operating company in 3 states currently. A brief history about Gabrielli Truck Sales: they started back in 1966. 1983, they acquired their first full truck dealership. And since 1990, when I joined the company, we had 2 dealerships, and today we currently have 21 dealerships in 3 states. We currently have about 850 employees in those 3 states. And in New Jersey, we currently have 4 dealerships, one in Monmouth County in Dayton, New Jersey, one in Ridgefield Park in Bergen County, Rockaway Township, and Bloomsfield, New Jersey. We currently employ approximately 250 people at those 4 locations, And all 4 of those locations are full-service truck dealerships. Our franchise agreement is with Kenworth Trucks, which is a PACCAR division. And basically at the Howell location, we're going to be providing municipal sales to all of our municipal customers in the area where we're going to be down in Howell on Route 9. In all the other dealerships, we have full-service dealers that we also handle municipal and commercial business. In this new dealership, we're going to handle probably 90% municipal sales and leasing, and occasionally some of the vehicles that are sold outside of this dealership will be brought in for servicing, along with some rental and lease trucks that we also sell from this location. We do not do any body work at any of our locations, including this new location. And we're going to be selling parts at this location, which consists of care parts, which is basically headlights for the trucks, bumpers, mirrors, glass for the windows, transmission filters, oil filters, and anything related to the cab and engine parts that are needed. We anticipate between 10 to 20 people visiting the site on a daily basis, being that, as I mentioned, it's a municipal type of a building, and our sales force usually goes out to these municipalities in person to visit them, to try and write a spec or inquire them about their bidding process. So most of our sales are out on the road. So the amount of customers coming into this facility will really only be for picking up parts and occasionally coming in to look at some of the trucks we have on the lot that are the new vehicles under the Kenworth franchise. Most of the parts that will be delivered to the site will be, again, as I mentioned before, mostly parts for the trucks. They will be basically bumpers and glass and mirrors and filters and things of that sort that the truck would need, that everyday municipalities will need to repair their trucks at their own sites. Frequency of deliveries from the parts side, from Kenworth, it's going to be usually 2 to 3 times a week. Again, based on the type of business we have there, that might be even less because it's 90% of a municipal type business. And then the refuse that will be generated at the location, basically going to be cardboard boxes where the parts come in with, trash from the office facilities and sales department, and metal and steel from the service department upon fixing the vehicles. And when we deliver new trucks, the trucks are delivered from the factory directly to our location by a drive-away company assigned by the factory. And it's in Chillicothe, I think it's Ohio. And it's where the trucks get delivered from. And they get driven by a drive-away company to our location.
So Paul, as distinct from for example, the Dayton or South Brunswick, there you might have businesses, commercial businesses coming in to the site to look at a truck. That would not be the same operation as you're having here. You have a more limited customer base. Is that accurate for this proposed location?
That's correct. Being that it's a government municipal type location, one of the first ones we've ever tried to do, we will have a limited amount of customers coming in looking for new trucks on the site.
So one of the D3 variances that we're seeking is permission to service vehicles that are not purchased at the site. And is one of the scenarios that necessitates that relief if a municipality, say, bought a truck at the Dayton location, and they're located down in Monmouth or Ocean, they might be someone who would want to come into this location because of its proximity rather than going back to Dayton. Is that the type of customer who might not have bought it at this location?
That is correct. And when we did the study for this location on Route 9, that was one of the reasons we decided on this site, because it does take into consideration a lot of the municipalities that are in this area that have a pretty hard time coming up to Dayton, New Jersey to get trucks repaired or even to buy parts. And also if they had to go up to Ridgefield Park, which is quite a distance. So when we looked at the map, we figured that this is the next best place for us to be based on our model of what we do with our businesses, and to make it a municipal facility mostly, and leasing and rental is a very good location for us.
That's really what we have in terms of the information with regard to the operation. Do you have an estimate? Let me just ask, do you have any estimate of how many employees you would anticipate might be at this location? I don't remember if you said it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not say that. I mentioned all the employees at all our other locations, but we're thinking about between 35 and 40 employees at this location. And I must say that we have benefited in New York City with economic development programs there, where we had to hire 150 employees at each one of those locations. And at all those locations, we exceeded expectations by about 10 to 15% over the last 25 years. So the Gabriellis are a well-driven economic business, and we do employ, like I said, over 800 people in 3 states.
And of the people that you've mentioned, up to maybe 35 people, will those people be all on site at the same time?
Most of them will be. So you'll have mechanics, you'll have parts guys, parts people, office people, and salespeople. As I mentioned, most of those salespeople will be out on the road going after municipal business.
Okay. Subject to our right to recall, that's all we have on direct at the moment for this witness.
Any of the board members have any questions? I have one. Even though it's probably not a municipal question, but if a company has a truck or they need parts, will they be allowed to come in there?
Yeah, they will be, but the majority of our business is by telephone. We have we set up a unique business where we have at each one of our locations, we have telephone salespeople taking calls every day over the phone. And at all the other locations, we have trucks that go out and make deliveries all day in all of the other locations. It'll probably be the similar situation here. We'll have the same type of situation. They'll call in for parts and we'll deliver the parts. For the most part, if the truck breaks down at one of their locations and they need that truck back up at their site, they would probably come in and buy a part from us at that point. But most of the business, as I mentioned, will be, majority of it will be municipal business.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board?
What is the hours of operation, sir?
Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. and on Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you.
And close Sunday.
Okay, thanks.
You did say that you're gonna have at least 20 people visiting daily,
Yes, 15 to 20 people, correct.
and you're gonna have 35 to 40 people at this site, working at the site, or how is that gonna work? So you're talking possibly anywhere from 60 people a day at that location?
Yes, well, the employees will be between 35 and 40 once it gets ramped up. It might take 2 to 3 years to get that done once the building is up and running. And then we will have customers, the municipal customers, coming in, dropping off the truck. And it's not like a car dealership where they come in off the street and they stay for 3 hours to buy a vehicle. They come in, they drop the truck off and they leave. Same thing if they're buying a part. If we don't deliver it, they'll pop in, pick up the part and then leave. That's the nature of our business.
They-
Any other questions? Charlie?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Apologize, I had a frog in my throat for a second there. Just a couple clarifying questions. So as far as deliveries, you said it's 2 to 3 times per week. What size vehicle are typically coming to the site for deliveries?
So most of them are 26-foot box trucks being delivered on site.
Anything larger infrequently?
Most of the municipality trucks we deal with are basically box trucks and dump trucks. Dump trucks usually average probably about 35, 40 feet of truck from front to back. So that might be the largest truck coming on site.
So you're never gonna have like a WB 60 or anything like there. I might have the wrong designation, but like a tractor trailer coming to the site needing to circulate the site or anything like that.
We do have a designated trailer drop-off on the site, but municipalities in general do not have trailers. Most of their trucks, like I mentioned, are box trucks, dump trucks, garbage trucks, utility trucks, pickup trucks. That's the majority of the trucks that are sold to the municipalities in New Jersey.
Okay. No, I was more so along the lines of the deliveries, right? So we said it's box trucks, so you're not gonna
Yeah,
have a
mostly
tractor
box
trailer.
trucks.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And then, so you talked about, I believe it was the driveway services. So can you just explain that? Are we gonna have like a car hauler bring in trucks? I mean, these aren't like a passenger vehicle that can fit on a, so just
No.
explain that for the board so they're aware.
Sure. Sometimes when they deliver a truck, they'll piggyback the truck. So if they're delivering 2 trucks to us, it'll be 1 truck on top of the other truck. And the driveway company will drive that from Ohio to New York. And then we have a winch that separates that second truck that's on that truck on our site, and then drop it down, and then the other truck gets removed. So it's basically, and we don't, I mean, if we deliver 100 trucks a year to municipalities at this site, it would be a grand slam for us to say another word. But probably that volume will probably be 50 to 100 trucks a year being sold at that site on the new trucks to municipalities.
So it would be someone physically driving one of the trucks that's to be, inventory on site.
Driveway
to this-
company, that's correct.
Exactly, right? So you're not gonna have a trash hauler parked on the side of Route 9 in a shoulder or anything like that, causing a
No.
traffic safety concern.
No,
Okay.
not like a car dealer where they park in the middle of the road and they undeck the trucks. No, none of these come on a car carrier. It's too big.
I think I just think that's important for the board's reference. And then also the applicant is proposing a fueling tank on the site. Can you talk about the use of that, what it's for?
Sure.
Is there any outside people coming in trying to fill up their, their diesel gas tank or anything like that?
Okay, so first of all, it's an above ground tank. And it's only being used for, when we sell trucks to all the municipalities, one of the requirements in their bid, is you have to deliver the truck with a full tank of fuel. So specifically, it'll be used for that purpose and for our leasing and rental fleet when they come in to get repairs, or when we deliver a new lease truck, we fill the truck up to full capacity. It will not be used by any outside source at all. None at all. It's not a
Yeah, so-
public station.
Yeah, so it's not a gas station with any signage and pricing,
That's
anything like
correct.
the only signage
Only
just
for
for
our
the
own use.
dealership itself.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then I apologize, I just had one more thing that I was gonna
Sure.
ask about, and I just want to make sure I'm not, okay, so we talked about waste, so refuse, cardboard boxes, trash from the office. I think there is a trash container, which we'll talk a little bit more with, with the engineer and the architect about that. There was a mention of metal and steel waste from the vehicles. Can you talk about how that's handled, and then also with service, how any fluids and liquid waste are handled from the site?
Yes, so steel and metal, like if we take apart a bumper from a vehicle that's damaged and we replace it with a new bumper, that would go on there. If we have a steel and metal dumpster that will be put into, and then I believe it's once a week they come and they cart that that steel and metal away. So most of those items are coming off a truck. If the wheels are damaged, that's metal, that will come off a truck. If his door is damaged, you have to replace the door, that's metal or aluminum, that will come off. And it'll be put into a dumpster and it'll be hauled off the property.
All right,
And
and
as far as,
is that stored in the same general location that the trash container is shown on the site
Yes.
plan? That's okay. And then
And-
as part of that also, I apologize, Paul, I don't mean to cut you off. I
Okay.
just want to, before I forget it myself. Is there any tire repairs, tire replacement where like that kind of waste would need to be stored in a corral or anything like that?
Very few tires. We normally send the tires out, or we'll have a tire company come on the property and replace the tires, and they take the tires back with them. We don't do any of that work. The tires are too large, and to keep storage for that, it would be taking up a lot of space for other parts that we need.
Okay, I think that's just important for the board's reference because we do get some, dealerships or repair shops, and that's always a common question about, tire and where is it
Yes, it
stored and
is.
how long is it there and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yes.
that is all I have at the moment, Mr. Chair. I'll let Jen chime in with some other questions.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just 2 questions real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned fuel before to Charlie. Now, is this going to be 2 different kinds of fuel, diesel and gas?
No, it's all diesel.
It's all diesel?
All
And the
diesel.
other-
There's no gas trucks sold. We don't sell any gas trucks.
And the other thing is the lubrication. Do you do repair? You say maintenance and repair. Do you change oils and change
Yes.
transmission fluids and all of that stuff at site?
Yes, we do, and we will install, and the architects will talk about that. We install a fuel water separator on site. So anything that does leak out will get captured in the fuel water separator.
But as far as when you're doing an oil change or something like that, that goes into a unit that captures it and
That's
it's
correct.
collected and then it gets disposed off and offsite in a lawful manner
Yes,
and all that.
it all goes into a little truck, it goes into a pump, pumps it in, up, and then when the company comes to take it out, they just hook up to it and they suck it out.
Thanks.
We have, and I think it's every month, we have to have that tested, and then we get certificates from the company taking the oil out.
Now, this area that this is going to be used for this, is this going to be concrete or is it going to be macadam?
I'm sorry?
This area where the oil changes in these vehicles are going to be parked, is this going to be macadam, asphalt? Or
Oh,
is
no,
it,
it's,
or is
no,
it
no,
going to
it's
be
gonna be
concrete?
inside, yes, inside the shop, concrete.
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
I don't really have a ton of questions, but I might have missed it and I apologize, but can you explain to me what kind of vehicles you're going to be leasing and renting?
Yes, they're 90% of those trucks are box trucks that are anywhere between 14 and 26 feet long. And the lease trucks are usually 2 to 3 year leases. And the rental trucks are mostly for when that lease truck comes in for repair. Under our contract, we have to give them a rental for the period that the truck is in our shop.
So like I couldn't come there and rent a box truck for you if I wanted to like move somebody?
No, we don't do what would you call us? Individuals?
Residential?
No. Oh,
You don't
dear
do
Lord.
retail leasing.
We don't do retail, thank you. We
you.
don't do retail, sorry.
No problem.
I can't even get a truck.
Okay. And then just to kind of piggyback on what Charlie was saying, so are your deliveries scheduled? Like, do you know when these vehicles are coming?
The vehicles themselves?
Like when
Yes,
you have
absolutely.
trucks and whatnot
Yes.
coming to you, you know when they're coming, or do you schedule them, or are you told when they're coming?
Right, so the factory will send a email to the sales manager that the truck is ready to leave the factory. It's leaving on Tuesday. It should be there by Thursday. Wednesday afternoon, we'll get a call from the driveway company that we're going to be arriving between 9 and 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. It's all computerized and it's all, nothing comes that we don't know about. on
So
the new
no
truck.
deliveries would be coming, you know, outside your hours of operation.
Absolutely not.
And is there, I mean, is it a typical time or is it just randomly depending on like where it's coming from and what times it leaves the factory and how long it takes to get to you?
Yeah, normally, yeah, that's a good question. Normally it's between, 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon is basically the delivery that comes. Sometimes these guys will hit traffic coming in from Ohio through Pennsylvania, New Jersey. They'll call us up and they'll tell us, hey, we can't make it today. We're going to stay over in Pennsylvania. We'll be there tomorrow morning.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that there's never a circumstance where a delivery would be arriving at the facility after you've closed for the night and then there'd be no place to place the vehicle on your property. I mean,
In all the years I've been with Gabrielle, I don't think that ever happened.
Okay.
Especially the fact that, somebody can steal it. So
Right, exactly.
it's well maintained.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just ask I apologize, one last question. So, and it might have been in the traffic statement or something to that effect, but I thought there was a mention of shifts for the service part of the facility. Can you talk about, I just want to make sure there's no overnight activities associated with that. And then if there are shifts, how that impacts, and how that's operated on the site with parking and managing the number of employees and everything like that. So you don't have an hour overlap of, 40 employees when, 20 for one shift and 20 for another shift that's eating into
Right.
your parking demand.
Right. Mostly the night shift it comes in. I think they come in like at 2 or 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I don't remember the exact hour that they come in. But in the evening shift, it's only about 4 or 5 guys. Most of the shift is in the daytime. And the night shift, I'm sorry.
So you'll have a shift from like 7:30 to a.m. to 2 p.m. and then a second shift from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., right?
That's correct.
So you say evening,
Normally that's what we try and do unless there's overtime, and then there'll be an overlap.
Okay. Yeah. And so when you say evening shift, it's till 10 p.m. It's the hard cutoff. No one's working at 2 in the morning or something to, okay.
No,
Gotcha.
not at all. Not at all. We respect our neighbors.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, anybody else? I see no hand. Okay,
All right. If you are done with Mr. Avento, we would like to call our engineer, Julia Algio, and have her sworn and qualified.
okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your name for the record and spell your last?
Yes, my name is Julia, middle initial G, last name Algio, Algeo.
Witness is sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Julia, can you briefly tell the board your qualifications, including by whom you're employed, your position, any licenses you hold, and perhaps your educational background?
Certainly. I'm a graduate of Rutgers College of Engineering, and I am a senior principal at the firm of Colliers Engineering and Design, formerly Maser Consulting, where I've been employed for 22 years. I've been practicing in the field of civil engineering for over 35 years. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, and I've been licensed since 1990, and I've appeared before many zoning and planning boards throughout the state of New Jersey, maybe hundreds of times.
We accept your qualifications.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for accepting Ms. Algio as an expert in the field of engineering. Julia, before you get started, do you want to, I know we had submitted some exhibits. Do you want to identify one? They've been marked, but if you want to reference one to start, I said that too quickly. I don't know if these have been marked.
So yes, I'll be using 3 exhibits tonight. Would you like me to name them? And I'm going to be using an existing conditions aerial exhibit dated February 28th, 2022.
That's been marked as A24.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm also going to be using an exhibit called Existing Condition Exhibit, also dated February 28th, 2022.
I'm sorry, that's A24. The first one was A23.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, A23 is the first one. Okay.
That's the aerial.
And then lastly, I'm going to be using a color rendered landscape plan for Gabrielle Howell Realty LLC, and that's dated February 28th, 2022.
Can I just ask a question? Were these exhibits submitted to the board 48 hours in advance?
Yes, I got them on Friday, Jen.
Thank you. I'm asking if they're dated today.
Yeah, they were. I questioned that when I did it, but I got them by email on Friday. I'm just, Julia, go back to the landscaping one because I don't have one that's listed that way. I have a 3D color rendering, but it's undated.
That's
Or
our architect.
I have a color rendering of the plan prepared by Colliers dated 2/28, and that was A22. That may be the one you're referring to.
I think so. This is Adam
Yeah.
Fiala from Sills, Cummins and Gross. I think the colored rendering of the plan is the same thing as the landscaped rendering.
Okay,
Right, it is the colored rendering of the plan, A22.
okay.
That reminds me, and I apologize, I did not introduce my colleague, Adam Fiala, who is an attorney also with the firm of Sills Cummins, and I apologize for my rudeness.
No problem.
Okay, so relying on those, Julia, will you start out by identifying the site beyond my providing the lot and block and the street address? Can you
Yes.
orient the board as to the location and then walk us through what's existing at the site and what is proposed?
Okay, so I'm going to bring up. What's going on here?
Do you need us to bring up any documents?
No, I'd like to do it.
Okay.
I'm having trouble finding it. Give me 1 second. Right here.
Yeah, just when you screen share, just look at the.
Okay, wait a second. Now, wait, what happened? Is it up? No. What's going on? Oh, do that. Okay, sorry. I think I got it now. Hold on.
Presentation now, select data like that.
Okay. So now if everyone can see this, I'm going to zoom out of it.
Can we just clarify which one this is again? Is this?
Yes, I'm just changing the, here we go. So this is A23, existing conditions aerial exhibit, and I like to use this exhibit to orient the board to the location of the site and the existing conditions and surrounding conditions. So as you can see, the site is highlighted in yellow, and I want to point out firstly that north is pointing to the left, and so north, I guess, is plan left. So the top is east, south is to the right, and west obviously is at the bottom of the page. So the property is known as Block 144, lots 109 and 113.01. The property is located on the northbound or the east side of New Jersey State Highway, US Route 9. It's north of West Farms Road. and approximately 2,000 feet south of Casino Drive. The site is located in the HD1 Highway Development 1 zoning district. The overall property is about 5.02 acres in size. I'm going to just zoom in so the board can get a better look at the site as I further describe it. So the property is 5.02 acres, and it currently contains the Auto Pick used car dealership and Miracles Auto Detailing and Repair businesses. The property was developed decades ago and historically has been under automobile-related uses for many years. There are 3 non-conforming curb openings to Route 9 that provide access to the site. So if I can use my pointer, let's annotate this one here. Spotlight, okay. So if everyone can see, there's a curb opening here, another large curb opening here, and another one here along.
For the record, Julia, you were moving from the right to the left across the frontage of the site when you were identifying those 3.
That's correct.
Thank
I
you.
was moving in the northbound direction, correct. There are 4 existing pylon signs located across the Route 9 frontage. There are 4 building structures located on the site. One here, here, here. When I say here, if you could see the pointer, and also on the northerly side of the site. And there are several, about 8 trailers I counted. There's fences on the site, gates, a septic system. There's concrete, asphalt, and gravel pavement and compacted earth located and covering the majority of the site. And we've estimated that the disturbed areas of the site encompass about 96% of the total lot area. Now, to the north of the property, located off-site, is the Bannon Meadow Brook, which flows in a south to north orientation. There's an off-site tributary to the Bannon Meadow Brook on the northerly side of the property that drains to the brook itself, and the property slopes gently to the north towards the Bannon Meadow Brook tributary. Because of these off-site tributary, there's wetlands and flood hazards associated with it. So there will be an 100-foot stream corridor buffer and 100-foot stream, 100-foot stream corridor and 100-foot stream corridor buffer associated with the off-track tributary that will encroach onto the property, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This property itself does not contain any freshwater wetlands. However, there are wetlands associated with the adjoining property, and some of the buffer associated with that wetlands does encroach onto this property. There are no floodways or riparian zones on the property, and we currently have applications for a letter of interpretation and a flood hazard area verification pending with the DEP. So as it relates to the site that you see here, there are numerous nonconformities from the Highway Development 1 zone requirements, as well as from the land use ordinance requirements with the site as it exists today. And just not to go into any major detail, but there's building setback encroachments. There's encroachments with buildings and pavement into the stream corridors and stream corridor buffers, and the farmland and residential buffers associated with the site. As you can see, there's really no landscaping and screening associated with the existing site. So now I want to, I'd like to zoom back out and.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
If, as I believe, but I might be all wet. Is there a billboard on this site?
No, there's actually a billboard adjoining the site on the adjoining property. And if you could see where I'm pointing right now.
That's New Jersey Transit property, Wendell.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I remember approving a billboard there. You know, they might have taken it down.
Okay, so now I'm gonna just talk about the surrounding uses. Okay, so to the north of the property is a vacant wooded property, and it's mostly floodplain and wetlands abutting our property, abutting the subject property, that is. And we understand that there is a pending application for a solar energy facility associated with the adjoining property. To the south and to the east, and I lost my pointer. Let me get my pointer back. Okay, so to the south and to the east is the New Jersey Transit Bus Depot facility with the site entrance and a billboard adjacent to the site entrance to the south. And then across Route, and then to the west is New Jersey State Highway US Route number 9. And across from Route 9 to the west are some undeveloped properties. There's one narrow, long residential lot, and there's commercial properties. I'd like to point out that the residential structure itself is set back approximately 400 feet from the new Route 9 right-of-way, which is a 120-foot right-of-way. So the residential building's about 520 feet set back from the site. And due to the existing vegetation, it's really not visible from the highway. And I am pointing all of this out because there is an ordinance interpretation of this lot as an abutting residential use. But I just wanted to point out that it is separated by the Route 9 right-of-way. And now I'd like to switch exhibits. And
Julia, can I just make a comment for the board's reference, just so they're, so I just want to point out, Mr. Chair, for the board. So Ms. Algio made reference to a solar application to the north. This is actually NJ Solar LLC that was carried earlier this evening, and their common property line, approximately 80% of it, of the shared property line, is a portion of that property that is not being proposed to be developed with solar or anything like that, because as Ms. Algio indicated, there's Bannermeadow Brook, environmental wetlands, and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to give reference. And then also another one that goes a couple years back, just to the north of that, is Route 9 Hardscapes, which came before the board, 5 or 6 years ago. So I think some of the board members are acquainted with the property and the surrounding uses a little bit. So you can keep going, Julia.
To piggyback on that before you move forward, and I don't disagree with anything that Charlie has said, but that's a Q farm on the tax records. And that's important because regardless of what is being proposed there or what kind of constraints are there, we have very specific requirements for a farmland buffer in our ordinance. And because it's a Q farm, that would be applicable to your application. And in addition, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but the ordinance requires that any residential use or zone next to or across the street. So it's not an interpretation, it's how the ordinance has been imposed on everyone. And because there's a residential use across the street, regardless of whether or not it's non-conforming, the residential buffer would be required on the site in the front. So it's not really just, and I understand it, and I was dealing with it earlier today on another matter, but that is how the ordinance reads, and that is how it has been implemented. So you'd have the Q farm buffer on the one side, and the residential, a portion of your frontage would require the residential buffer as well.
And then Jen, just to add on that too, I believe the bus depot is technically in the area too, which is a residential zone. So like technically it would be required along the rear or the east portion of the property.
Yeah.
So what is the Q farm?
Qualified farm. It's farmland assessed property.
Thank you.
So Jen, Charlie, you know, the site in question here, didn't we already have pre-existing conditions and uses on previous improvements that were made on this site?
We have, but it has not been, it's not uncommon when a use goes out. I mean, we've had applicants have to move sheds and other types of facilities. And in this particular instance, because, you know, you're talking about a new facility, you're talking about an opportunity to recapture some of those buffers if possible. I'm not opining, and I know there's a number, I know Ms. Goncher has a million witnesses to come before us at some point during the course of this application, and we'll have somebody address those issues. But, you know, we have had sites come in, and Wendell, you've been involved in most of them, where, you know, they're making improvements to an existing facility. They're not even putting a new facility, and we have required them to either remove structures or move structures out of those buffers. You know, here, I'm sure we're going to hear testimony as to what's adjacent to it and where it stands, et cetera, with some of the subsequent witnesses. But it has been our policy that, you know, we require significant testimony on those things. And just because there's something there now doesn't mean it is just going to automatically be allowed to continue.
Roger, thank you.
I'm sorry for the interruption, Julia.
Oh, no, no problem. Okay, Merrill, anything else on existing conditions? Can I move on to the proposal?
No, I think we're good unless the board has any questions about what else is, what other existing conditions exist. Feel free to move on to what we are proposing.
Okay. So now I am going to describe the proposal using Exhibit A22. It is the colored rendering of our landscaping plan entitled Gabrielli Howell Realty LLC. So this application that we're here before you is proposing to demolish all of the existing structures on the property and to redevelop the property to construct a two-story, 38,750 square foot building for truck sales, leasing, and service use, with associated parking, loading, fueling for trucks being serviced, a total of 111 parking spaces, one stormwater basin, landscaping, and signage improvements. The applicant is seeking a conditional use variance and site plan approval with variances and waivers for the project, which you'll see will result in a major improvement for the township, both from an aesthetic and environmental perspective, as well as all of the other benefits that you've heard from the applicant. Okay, so I'd like to first just orient the board to the building. The building that's proposed is 2 stories. It has a footprint of 28,919 square feet with a 9,831 square foot second story, for a total of 38,750 square feet, which is about 14% building coverage. The front of the building will be facing Route 9, where the showroom and the offices are located. The main entrance will be located on the north side, and where there's a drive-through building canopy that I'm pointing to right here. Behind the canopy and the main entrance, on the north side, are truck service bay entrances. And then on the south side, there'll be additional truck service bay entrances. And there's also going to be this loading area. The building will contain approximately 5,158 square feet of office space, 15,063 square feet of service space. There'll be 14 bays for truck service, including a wash bay for trucks being serviced. 5,686 square feet of sales area, which includes the showroom and the offices, and 1,221 square feet for retail part sales, and 11,622 square feet of storage and receiving space. The loading area on the south side of the building will be recessed with a retaining wall that I'm pointing to here. The retaining wall will match the building. It'll run along the south side of the loading ramp. There are 2 recessed docks that I'm pointing to right here. The docks will be recessed 4 feet. So that meaning that it'll be 4 feet below the finished floor of the building. So from around the location here that I'm pointing at the front of the building, it'll be ramping down 4 feet from the grade at the southwest side of the building. So as far as these 2 docks go, one will be for truck access for parts deliveries, most outer one, and the one closer to the building will be for the trash container. The trash will be picked up by a private waste company, and a design waiver has been requested for this design and location for the trash container.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
Is there any way you can reverse that?
I think that would affect the architecture of the building.
Facing out
and
to the front
functionality.
building.
I'm sorry?
It's facing out to the front.
Well, I understand your question. Operationally, I believe it would affect the operation of the building. So I couldn't respond to that. I would have to defer that question to the architect.
Okay, I just, to have the garbage and everything, in the front yard, or facing frontward, that's all I was asking.
Right, and you'll see with further testimony that it will not be visible from the traveling public.
Yeah, but you're also talking, what I heard before, as far as, the dumpster with the metal and everything, that is that going to be in that area?
There will be a trash container sitting at that dock, yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Wendell. That's definitely not something that we would like at that location. Reversing just even that section would be a better alternative from, regardless of how slow or fast the traffic is moving. It's just not something that we'd like to see facing in that direction. And I'm sure we're not going to finish tonight. So maybe prior to coming back, whenever that would be, is something you guys could circle back and just discuss.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I still booted?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I would like to see what we can do, because you're talking garbage along with a dumpster with metal in it, for pickup.
Okay, again, there'll be testimony on how it will, not be visible from the public and from Route 9, but I'll continue on describing the rest of the site. So the development will gain access from Route 9 with a 36-foot wide right in, right out driveway. All of the existing driveway curb openings along Route 9 will be closed and a new driveway will be constructed. At the site entrance, 41-foot setback from the right-of-way, we're proposing one freestanding pylon sign. We're also proposing a monument-style directional sign as you enter the site. And the monument sign would direct the customers to the main entrance. The site has been designed for two-way circulation throughout. The drive aisles are a minimum of 30-foot wide, and they can accommodate fire truck, a refuse truck, as well as the flatbed truck that would circulate around the site, and a WB67 that would make the deliveries, occasional deliveries. There'll be a total of 111 there'll be a total of 111 parking spaces where 104 minimum spaces are required. At the front and sides of the property, there will be 39 inventory spaces. So along the southerly property line where I'm pointing, along the front, there'll be 11, and there'll be 6 on the southerly side, 11 on the north side, and then another 5 on the west side. So 6 on the south side, 11 in the front on the west side, another 5 on the west side, and 17 on the north side. The inventory spaces are 34 feet long by 15 feet wide. And the area devoted to the exterior display of inventory vehicles is 9.6% of the total lot area, and it's less than 20%, which is the maximum allowable. On the rear sides of the development, there are 23 service vehicle parking spaces. So we have a row here on the south side, and then another, I believe it's 6 here, and another 5 on the east side. And these spaces are 34 feet by 15 feet. And then adjacent to...
Can you expand that out?
Sure, I can make it larger. Yeah, that's much better. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
And Julia, just to clarify for the board, so vehicle service, so those spaces are reserved for vehicles that are dropped off to be serviced, or after they're serviced, they're held there until, you know, the municipality comes picks it up?
That's correct, yes.
All right.
Adjacent to the building, there are 14 customer spaces here in the front and on the side. And these spaces are 19 feet long by 9 feet wide. And then on the north and rear east side, there are 34 employee parking spaces. So we have 24 in the back here, and then 11 on the north side of the entrance. And the employee parking spaces are 19 feet long by 9 feet wide. And then there are 3 handicap spaces included in that 111 total spaces that I've just described to you. Also like to point out, on the north side of the entrance canopy will be a fueling area for exclusive use for fueling the trucks serviced on the property, and it will not be for retail fuel purposes. Regarding the building setbacks and coverage requirements, from Route 9, the setback is 125 feet, where 60 feet is required. From the northerly property line, the side setback is about 200 feet, where 25 feet is required. And on the south side, the setback is about 106 feet, where 25 feet is required. From the rear setback, we're proposing a 57-foot setback where 25 feet is required. The overall maximum lot impervious coverage is approximately 69.5%, where 70% maximum is permitted. And this plan, as I've described, is conforming in all respects to the setback and coverage requirements of the HD1 zone. Now I'd like to describe to you some of the buffers on the property. And I have another exhibit that I'll switch to. It's the
Julia, before you jump to
Yes.
that, could I just, going back to the vehicle fueling station, can you talk about what, you know, licensing or permits the owner would need to obtain from the state for that? And then also any spill prevention, containment measures that are proposed with that island space there?
Yeah, well, I can talk a little bit about the containment. The assembly, the system that they're proposing will be double walled. It has built-in weatherproof secondary containment. It's provides for 110% containment. As far as licensing and permits goes, the applicant will obtain all of the necessary licenses and permits required for this. I do not have at the moment a list of those permits though.
Yeah, but I believe there is licensure that's required from the state. You can't just put it in. I believe you have to get licensed from the state to have a fueling station on your property, if I'm not mistaken.
Can I just interject? It's Paul Avento.
Mhm.
The other ones, we put at all the other locations, the contractor or the company that installs the unit, they go out and they get all the proper permits from the state, whatever permit is required and whatever retention is required, they go out and get it. And then once a year, we have to have a test on these tanks, and the tanks get tested every year for any leaks or any, and each one of these have a detection alarm system. If there is a leak, the alarm will go off and we notify the company. They come right away and see what the issues are.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're
oh,
welcome. Yes, sir.
real quick, that footprint that tank's at, is that gonna be concrete?
Yes, it's so similar to a gas station, the way it sits on the concrete curbing,
Yeah.
like a gas station has, will be the same idea.
And it'll
It'll
be
be
a
raised.
retention style concrete, sort of like a drive aisle. That if diesel is spilt from the truck, it's captured and not run off.
It will be captured, correct.
Okay.
So Paul, is it the tank itself is dual walled? So if the inner leaks and gets a hole, it leaks into the outer. But I think what the chairman was asking, so is it like your typical curb? It's on the edge of the road where it's got 6-inch reveal and then it's flush with the concrete behind it, or does it have an additional, like wall above that? So if it, say the outer tank did fail, is it going to be contained almost in like a bathtub with the curb kind of effect?
The ones we currently have, they do not, but we can look into that here. I have not seen any style like that at all, but we can look into that for you.
That's not what my question was.
I apologize.
My question is whenever you pull a truck up there and you're filling the tank on the truck, is there is there a way that you're going to capture if you have a spill filling the truck?
So right now, if there's a little spill, it's like at a gas station, they go out and they put the speedy dry on the ground, and then they sweep it up right away. Because in order to do like a little tub, when you're trying to fuel up the truck, it's going to be outside of that tub. So basically, we have the speedy dry available, and right away they dry it right up. But for the most part, the guys that are filling these trucks up are very experienced, and we don't have many leaks at our other locations.
Okay, well, I've
Do you
seen
have
a
a
lot
spill
of them.
Do you have a spill prevention plan? Like, so most gas stations have like a spill prevention plan on site. If somebody's there, whatever, an employee, if a spill occurs, there's like a manual that tells them what to do.
Yes, there is, and that is provided by the company that installs the system.
Okay.
Now, are these high flow pumps?
It's a typical, like at your gas station. It's basically the same thing.
Well, I know a lot of the big trucks, they have high flow systems.
It's like a different nozzle. So like if a big truck went into like a Wawa that has diesel, it's slow flow diesel, it would take them like all day to fill the truck up.
Oh, no. This is like you go to a regular gas station, diesel station. What does it take? 2 minutes to fill a 40-gallon tank?
That's
So it'll
high
be the
flow.
same thing here. So yeah, so it's not, I'm thinking of when you're doing a charging station on an electric vehicle, it sits there for 10 hours. No, this is your typical fueling.
But it's
There's a high flow system.
What he's saying, if it's going to fill in a 40-gallon tank in 2 minutes, it's got to be high flow diesel
Yeah.
because low flow nozzle would take forever.
No.
Does that have posts to protect the tanks too from being hit?
I'm sorry?
Does that have posts or poles that protect the tanks from being hit?
Balance.
Yes, ballots.
Yep.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
And Mr. Chair, just I want to touch on the point that you made with the fueling and, possible, diesel spilling in that area. We have had it come up where, sometimes the diesel spills and he needs up the asphalt. It might be something for the applicant to consider that 30-foot aisle in between the fueling tank and the entrance to the building there. Maybe putting that in with reinforced concrete instead, so you don't have diesel eating up your asphalt pavement in that area. That might be something for the applicant to consider.
It is concrete. All of our, underneath our canopies are all concrete because the trucks all stop there to talk to the service advisor. So that whole pad is all concrete. And then the rest of the location is going to be asphalt. But yes, underneath that awning is going to be concrete. Reinforced concrete.
All right, I just asked that be clarified a little bit more on the site plan, either with the
Yeah,
detail or
once I go over the site plans, you'll see it.
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Julia?
Yes, so I'm going to continue on describing then the stormwater management system. We're proposing a storm drainage collection system to intercept runoff from the building and the pavement surfaces. There'll be one stormwater infiltration basin proposed at the front, at the northwest corner of the property. The basin will have a sand bottom and will provide for flow attenuation, water quality, and recharge of runoff from the site in accordance with the green infrastructure requirements of the state stormwater rule. The stormwater management design meets the requirements of the stormwater rule that became effective in March of 2021. Regarding utilities, public water will be provided by connection to the New Jersey American water main on Route 9 in front of the site. 2 new hydrants are being proposed on site, and an at-grade water meter vault is being proposed. I'm pointing at the front of the property. Sanitary sewer service will be provided by connection to the sanitary sewer line that's proposed along the site frontage by Howell Township. That project's known as the Freewood Acres and Route 9 sanitary sewer extension, which is currently underway, and I believe construction is imminent. A variable width sanitary sewer easement, it's approximately 10 feet until you get to the southerly boundary. So variable width sanitary sewer easement dedicated to Howell Township for these purposes has been indicated on our plans. Regarding landscaping and lighting, landscaping is proposed generally in accordance with the ordinance requirements, but we are seeking a few waivers. We're proposing a mixture of 65 deciduous trees, 63 evergreen trees, 295 shrubs, a combination of deciduous, ornamental, and flowering, 248 evergreen shrubs, and ornamental grasses are proposed within and around the perimeter of the development. A waiver has, there are 8 street trees required, which we have provided, 12 parking lot trees required, and we have provided, and these are all in accordance with the ordinance calculations. 12 replacement trees for tree removal required, and 152 trees per the impervious surface replacement tree ordinance are required, but 96 have been provided. There are limited areas on site for the proposed planting, and because of the previous developed nature of the site, we are requesting a waiver from the tree replacement requirements, and the applicant is proposing a contribution in lieu of providing 44 less trees than is required based on the replacement calculations. I would point out that in reviewing the plan, most recently, we found that it may be possible to add a few more trees in this location up to the north. So it would be our intention to add approximately an additional 6 trees, which would result in a reduction of the deficit. And we would provide that information, of course, on our, on our resolution compliance, hopeful resolution compliance set of plans. There is a waiver required from section 188-106G to permit plantings in some areas between the parking area and the building where the ordinance requires that all areas must be landscaped. So where feasible, we have added plantings between the building and the parking, and then the balance of the required plantings have been provided around the perimeter of the site. Lighting is proposed with a combination of 24-foot high freestanding light stanchions and 20-foot high building mounted lights. The mounting heights comply with the ordinance requirements. The site pole and wall mounted fixtures are by Lithonia Lighting and come with the nighttime friendly designation. So this means that no light is emitted vertically above the fixture. All fixtures and poles will have a black finish. All fixtures are 4000 K color temperature LED fixtures, and this is a white light, not yellow or orange. The site lighting has been designed to comply with the township and industry norms for safety and basic security. There will be an average 1.1 foot candle, where 0.5 foot candle average is required, and a design waiver is being requested because of the type of use. The Illuminating Engineering Society of North America recommends an enhanced security lighting, a minimum illuminance level of 1 foot candle. So we're just proposing slightly above that.
Julie, is the applicant proposing for those lights to remain on overnight after close of business at 10 p.m. or are they on dimmers, or what's their intention for that?
Paul, would you be able to respond on that?
Well,
Do we know what we
Trying-
do? Do we
I'm
know what
trying
we
to-
do at
Yeah,
other
I'm trying
locations?
to remember what we do at our other locations. I think at the other locations, we just keep the building lights on along the building. We shut down the other lights. I think, but I can get a better,
Yeah, we're
I can
gonna
get a
come
better
back.
understanding of what we're gonna do at this location. That never entered my mind at all. So I do apologize for that, but I know at my location, we keep the wall lights on and we shut down the perimeter lights, just so we have some security on the site.
Yeah, I just want it to be, whatever it is, I just want it to be clear for the board so they know what they're granting, because, just so it gets into a resolution, so the board and the applicant is protected, if it
Sure.
does get to an approval.
We'll take care of it.
Ms. Concha, at this time, it's 10:31. I think we're gonna wrap this up tonight.
Okay, well, I would, I guess I was gonna ask Julia how much longer she thought she had. We certainly understand that we wouldn't be making it to another witness. The only question I was going to ask her is if she had an idea of how much longer her direct testimony might be. But
should I answer?
yeah, well, if you have an idea, I'm sort of hearing they've reached their limit for the evening, but let's just find out.
Well, all I have left that I would like to describe to the board are the buffers. And
respectfully, Mr. Chair, the buffer conversation is going to be more than a 5-minute conversation, as you know. So I would submit that this may be a good breaking point, because as you know, the board takes the buffers very seriously, and it's going to be more than a 5-minute conversation.
I agree.
Plus, Jen, there'll be questions for
I'm sorry,
Julia
Mike,
generally
I
anyway.
just locked out.
Yeah, I just, knowing the history of the board and the buffers, and how we have handled them in the past and the information that you require, it's gonna be a substantial conversation.
Yes,
I agree.
I agree.
And I thank you.
I
And I
agree. Am I still locked up?
No,
So where, yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Where do we go from here?
we need a new date.
We go
You're
full
there, you're still
screen.
there, Wendell, we can still hear you.
Okay,
Can we knock down the share screen so Wendell can feel better and can see us?
no, but I'm getting locked up.
Julia, can you take down the exhibit, please?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Just,
Due date? I have March 28th. It has one application carried to it. It was for bulk variances. Or I have April 11th, which has one application for bulk variances carried to it. Both of them will still be remote meetings.
Well, we have some deadlines we're working on, so if we could, the next possible meeting would be the most desirable. So if there's time on the 28th.
March 28th.
There's nothing before that, Eileen? There's,
March 14th already has 3 applications on it.
okay, okay.
So March 28th, Mr. Chair.
okay. How are we? We're good with notice.
We're good with time.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Could the board just please announce the time, location? Let me
Yes.
understand, if this is remote, will this have a different Zoom address, or do you use the same one?
We use the same one for the zoning board, and it will
Thank
be on the
goodness.
agenda.
Thank goodness. Thank you.
Okay, this application is going to be carried to March 28th, case number BA 2117, Gabarelli and Howell Realty LLC. Be carried to March 28th with no further notice at 7 p.m.
And the address is on the board's website with the same remote address. It's currently posted and will be available on that website.
It'll be on the agenda on the website.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Is there any other business of the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Can I have a motion to adjourn then?
I'll make that motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Motion by
Second it.
Mr. Hughes. Who's second?
Moretti.
Moretti? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. I appreciate everything. Thank y'all for your time, and we'll see y'all in a month.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Take care, everyone.